Hello, and welcome to another episode of Voice of Hong Kong. We are speaking to the world, and today we are going full platform. This is the first time that we'll be doing this, so basically, I want everybody to know that this will be a long show. At the same time, I just have a few announcements. I did a little racing stripe. I love cars, so I got a little racing stripe going. It's my Kofifi 1984 cut. Um, Anyway, I want to shout out to Dodong Rason for Kagawad. I don't know if he's still running, but he should be the Kagawad there in Kitapawan. I love the Philippines. I used to live there, and shout out to the Philippines today. So basically, I just want to talk about the scope of the show, Voice of Hong Kong. What we have here is we can talk about politics, business, any political movements, but I want to stress that it's an opinion show, and I want everybody to know that from the very beginning that we're really talking just from our hearts. Today, what's special about the platform, I think, is that both Mike and I were here with Mike, and Mike and I have both been living in Hong Kong for some time, and he represents a foreign opinion and a local opinion. He speaks Cantonese much better than I do. He probably reads Chinese a lot better than I do. So he will mostly be representing the local opinion, but with a Canadian perspective. There's a lot of Hong Kong people that live in Canada, all over Canada, but particularly in Vancouver, and he'll be talking about his experience there and where he's from and things like that. So there's his perspective as a Canadian, his perspective as a Hong Konger, there's my perspective as an American, and there's my perspective as a Hong Konger. So let's get started. I think today we're going to talk about several topics. So I'll let you introduce yourself a little bit better, and then we'll go from there. How about that?
Okay, sure. New debuted, eh? So yes, a little bit background on myself. I am one of the admin for Being Libertarian Hong Kong and Being Libertarian Canada. When I was an infant, my biological parents put me in a little rocket, shot me out of a rocket, and I landed in Kansas. Grew up in a farm, and then I grew up and then got a reporting job. That's my little background. If you cannot catch that, that is actually Superman. I'm just joking.
That's why you wear the blue shirt, right?
Uh, I joke a lot. I mean, all my viewers from Being Libertarian know that I joke a lot, and I do make a lot of jokes. So, real background: I was born in Hong Kong. I do speak Cantonese, write a little bit of Chinese, but not that well. Grew up in Canada, so all my education, everything I know, it's from Canada. So, grew up playing
Vancouver?
hockey, Vancouver, Vancouver, you like to call it,
Yeah,
whatever.
I love it called Vancouver.
Yeah, it's actually more of a small town outside of Vancouver. Very,
Okay.
very small town. And we are just we have about 40,000 people in our
Wow.
population. That's a little small town.
That's like
And
where I grew up in LA.
yeah.
Yeah, I grew up in LA, which is 10 million people, but like I live in a city of like 30, 40,000. So it was like I feel like I'm from small town America, you know.
Oh wow. We're about.
Just south of the northernmost border, a city called Silmar.
Oh, okay. Yes, that's a nice town.
It's where the water comes down, the aqueduct comes down the
Hmm.
mountain. You can see it like a giant cement river.
Yes, yes.
it
We
it
have
would be a
something similar.
natural beauty, except it's man-made.
We have something similar, but except for it's natural.
Right. Okay.
So right behind my house back home, it's a little creek. It'll go into a river. So it's called the Coquitlam River, and then it just goes into the Fraser.
Do you fish there and stuff like that?
You can fish there if you have a license, and salmon do swim up the
Oh,
river.
that's nice. That's nice. I have family in Northern California, and the salmon go by there too. It's quite
Hmm.
nice.
Yeah, the salmon there, if you have license, yes, you can fish there. Occasionally, you see a lot of bears, like grizzly bear, and so on.
That's super cool.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. Yeah. So anyway,
Okay, so you were born in Hong Kong. You speak some Chinese. You lived in Canada. How long have you been back in Hong Kong?
for about 6 years.
Okay, so
Six
you've
years.
really seen it since the 2014 situation
The Occupy
onward,
movement. Yeah.
right? I got here slightly before that. I've been here 11 years. So like for me, I got to see like the actual Hong Kong right at the end before the 2014.
Hmm.
Well, for me, the experience has been, I think, life changing. I don't know how it's felt for you.
It really changed because in the past every year I'll come back for vacation just to visit the
Yeah,
family,
of
so on,
course.
for yeah, for the summer, before between schools and so on. And I see the change every year. I do see the change every year, how technology grow and how the sentiment of the people, how they feel.
Yeah, like I really find it interesting because, in America, like there's the issue with Trump. I call it Kofifi 1984 because I'm anti, New World Order, like six men at the top. But I mean, we agree on that because we're libertarians. But at the same time, like for me, like the people in America, like Trump, who are calling it China virus, he makes that mistake of calling it China virus rather than calling it CCP virus or something, specific to political things. And they use it for a racism. And when I tell my American friends, I don't know how your Canadian Asian friends feel about it, but when I tell my American friends, hey, like we call it China virus in Hong Kong. People in Taiwan call it China virus.
Hmm.
So if you want to criticize Trump for calling it China virus, are you also criticizing, because I have Japanese friends, I have Taiwanese friends, I have, regular Chinese friends, mainland Chinese friends, if you have regular. But, like when I talk to them, I'm like, would you be criticizing these people as being racist for saying it? Oh, yes. Oh, yes, they're definitely racist. And I find that like striking in terms of they actually consider Chinese people like you racist for calling it Chinese virus because of a political agenda. You know what I
Oh,
mean?
it's a lot of it is political correctness, and when they do that, I'll go way above that. I'll go way above that because I love to play the whole Chinese stereotype.
Yeah. Yeah, please
Like,
do.
for example, okay, for example, some of my Chinese jokes are like, "Oh, you see that, right?" They're
Yeah,
like,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
they're uncomfortable with that. Or if I
Yeah,
go,
but that's
okay,
Japanese.
oh, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, right. And also, I will go somewhere like, okay, do I look like I can drive? I'm Asian.
Right, 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 right.
We go blind
How
behind
do
the
you
steering
blind an
wheel.
Asian? How do you blind an Asian? Put a
Put
windshield in front of them.
it. Yeah, exactly. Or you know what? Dental floss.
Oh, right. Yeah, that works
Oh.
sometimes.
I'm not too uptight to have fun.
No, I mean, I think here's my deal is like you said, you go above it and you make humor out of it. To me, I take a more legal approach. It's not racism, it's classism.
Mm.
And the perfect example I can see of this is Chow Dai Fook and Chow Sang Sang are two of the biggest sellers of gold in the world.
Hmm.
And their number one customers are mainland Chinese people. But they also have Indian, Pakistani, Bangladeshi, freaking Middle Easterners. You got like black people from Africa that come here to buy authentic gold coin or sell stuff they pulled out of a mountain. I don't know. You know what I mean? So you got all of these different customers and they must appeal to them in order to be, you couldn't be racist at Chow Sang Sang and not sell to a black person. Like, so in Hong Kong, the cultural hierarchy is more classist than racist. So if
Exactly.
my American friends wanted to criticize Trump or the Chinese people calling it the Chinese virus, they should say that it's classist and not racist. And then I wouldn't have an argument with them because it is classist.
It is
When a,
classism.
poor, when a poor black man walks down the street in TST where all the gold markets are, no one talks to him. But when a black man wearing a nice suit walks down the street in TST, every gold sailor wants to talk to him. And
Hmm.
why? Because they know he can buy gold. They know he's in the market for gold and they're willing to, reach out to him.
Yes,
So,
exactly. It's
so
marketing. Marketing 101.
exact, exactly, exactly. And so when I talk to people, I say, this is capitalism. If you portray yourself as a poor person, you know, my family's property, let's say in America, if I'm the average American with a view of the lake and a farm and a gold mine and some crystals in the ground and whatever, my property's worth $20 million.
Mm-hmm.
But I drive a Ford pickup truck that's 60 grand, not a Rolls Royce that's 200,000. You know what I mean? So it's like there are a lot of rednecks with paychecks.
Yeah.
And when they want to buy gold, they come to Hong Kong, and Hong Kong people are savvy enough to say, that guy looks broke, but he's got a $20 million property at home and he wants to put gold in the ground there. So
Mm-hmm.
he's coming here to buy gold at Chow Tai Fook. I'm going to sell to him. I don't care if he's a redneck. I don't care if he's wearing a cowboy hat. I don't care if he's wearing an African color outfit from his tribe. I'm going to
Mm-hmm.
sell to him.
Exactly.
And so to call it racism is so naive. And that's the main part I want to see if you see that too from Canadians, or
Oh,
do you agree that Hong Kong are more classist and not racist actually, or do
Hong
you
Kong
see
people.
racism or
Uh, this is what I say. Hong Kong people don't see racism. My one of my good teachers, music teacher, he's from Los Angeles. He won a Grammy. He used to write songs, play piano with Michael Jackson, and so on. So he's now living in Hong Kong right now, and he's pretty much welcomed a like a black American, African American living in Hong Kong. He is quite old now, so he's pretty much treated as a local celebrity, and they love him for it. And it's not the fact that he got money or anything, because he has something to offer. That's why. In regards to a lot of my political correct friends, some of my American friend now, former friend, I would say, or former colleague, that's a better way to say it, living in Hong Kong right now, or even Canadian, they say, oh, everything's racist. But the problem is, why they say that? Because they don't have any kind of intelligent argument to say that, oh,
exactly
to look into
exactly
things,
exactly
to look
it's
deeper.
like it's like closing the wet markets. I'm sorry, but I like going to the wet market in Kowloon City and seeing Chow, what is his name, that fat guy, Chow Yun Fat, the
Fat Chow
director.
Yun? Oh, no, no, for
Yeah,
Chow Yun Fat.
right.
Mhm.
I get to see him because he loves going to the wet market and picking out his own vegetables. He doesn't want to leave it to his helper or his servant or his cook or
Yeah.
whatever to pick out the vegetables.
He
So he
likes low
wants to,
key living.
hey, I love to go through there. So you're going to ban that wet market that's been there and this celebrity's been going to? If he got sick from that wet market, we would know about it in a minute.
Hmm.
Okay? So rather than raising the health standards of all of China and the people in America coming out and saying, let's raise the health standards of these animal things. We can't have this kind of virus coming out. That's an intelligent argument. They come out and go, no, you have to ban that stuff. You have to
Hmm.
set that down. All those things, you got to shut all that down.
Yeah.
Wait, what? Ban? That's racist. To me, that's racist. If you want to talk about race, they're saying all Chinese markets need to be banned. Well, why is it Chinese? Why not Thailand? Why not Singapore? Why not Indonesia? Why not Hong Kong? Why
Or
not Taiwan? Why
Philippines.
not, or Philippines? Or, I
Or
mean,
even Japan.
and if you want to ban viruses and disease and human-borne disease, let's ban slums.
Hmm.
Let's ban slums. I'm agree. Yes, as a libertarian, I think I stand as a libertarian, and most libertarians would agree with me that slums are a violation of the NAP, and we should not have slums. And those shanty, shacky, where the water and the sewage is running under people's beds, and it's like there's mosquitoes everywhere and malaria. I've been there. I'm not lived in there. I've been there. Okay,
Hmm.
those people who tried to feed me, and I wouldn't eat their food. You know what I mean? And it
Hmm.
had nothing to do with race. It had to do with class. I love the Philippines.
Hmm.
Like, I think we should work hard to ban those kinds of places and fix those kinds of places. But
Yeah.
in terms of like banning wet markets, what do you think
No.
of that? Is that racist? Is that classist? What is that?
It's absolutely a stupid idea. I think it's a very stupid idea. This is my reasoning why. List my reasoning. A lot of the fresh market, yes, it's disgusting. I wouldn't go in there myself. But they do sell a lot of really fresh fruits and vegetable and produce and so on. I don't go in there because I just don't like seeing like freshly slaughtered animals.
The smell is
It
awful.
smells awful, and especially, yeah, I have to say though that when I see slaughter animal, like, and I see the like, for example, pig tongue, pig heart, pig lungs, like hanging there, it's just, no,
I'm
thank you.
okay with the tongue because I really love to eat tongue, and that's where I'm sympathetic. It's like I walk through there and I see stuff that I'm like, oh man, I want to eat that. And then I see other stuff where I'm like, oh my God, did I just see that? So
Yeah.
it's like, you know, in that way, I'm sympathetic and I'm not sympathetic, but I'm open minded enough to say, hey, even if I saw nothing in there that I wanted, this thing has been around for 10,000 years
Exactly.
in China, and we need to elevate the health standard of it. We can't build La Sagrada Familia in Madrid
Hmm.
without having the proper, structural standards to keep the thing up. If
Yep.
it's unsafe to have this giant church, we need to ban it. But at the same time, we need to be able to build a giant church that could possibly be
Raise the
insanely
standard.
unsafe. Right.
Exactly what you meant. Raise the standard. For example, in Tongcheng, they have a wet
Yeah.
market right by the school I used to teach. I used to go there. I was okay walking there because they sell fresh produce. They sell
Right.
vegetables. They sell, yeah, that's what they do. And
Uh-huh.
they do clean it to a reasonable degree.
Not
And
so
it's,
smelly. Some of
uh,
them are not smelly.
well, they don't slaughter, they don't sell like slaughtered animal parts.
That's
I'm
good.
not a vegetarian myself, but I just because of the fact that when I see, well, organs, I'm like, ew.
Yeah,
And personally, I don't eat pork, so I'm like, ew.
I understand that.
Yeah, especially now. This is our in my religion. This is our Holy Week, so we actually do try to eat like kosher.
Respect for that.
Hmm.
Respect. Does that mean no fish too?
Fish is kosher.
I find veganism kind of interesting. Like, some people they just refuse to eat any animal product, and then other people they're a little bit different. What do
Hmm.
you feel about veganism?
My ex-girlfriend is vegetarian or vegan.
Mm-hmm.
Not just vegetarian, she's vegan, and her best friend is a raw vegan. So
Wow.
they're very militant.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
find a lot of them are quite
yeah.
militant. For her best friend gave me some hard time because I would not eat like what she eats. Exactly.
I admire their level of discipline. I just don't understand, back to like illogical. We were talking about different kinds of illogical comments. That's why I brought it up, is because like if they want to talk about like animal abuse and that's why they don't eat eggs, if they want to talk about animal cruelty and that's why they don't do this, I'm fine with that. But like I've had chickens and chickens are very friendly. And if you have a bunch of female chickens and no male chickens, those eggs have never been fertilized.
Exactly. And you know what's the best thing about chickens?
What's that?
They taste good fried.
Hey, you know what? That's the best thing. That's absolutely the best thing. But if you're not into killing your chicken, you can bury your chicken after it dies. But
Yeah.
for the time that it makes eggs, all of those eggs, I mean, if you wear a tampon, you should be okay with eating an egg. That's my opinion. If you wear a condom to have sex with your girlfriend, you should be okay with eating an egg that you made from your garden where there's no male chickens within miles and that egg was never fertilized. If that
Hmm.
egg was never fertilized, it's not a moral obligation, it's not an emotional obligation, it's an aborted pregnancy. It's not even an aborted fetus, it's an
It's
aborted
not even aborted
pregnancy.
because
Right?
it's never fertilized.
Right. It's just like a period, like a woman's monthly cycle. That's a chicken's whatever
Exactly as
cycle.
it is. Yeah.
And honey, they make these honey machines now.
Hmm.
Okay, so like I can understand like okay, these are like working bees and this is their life and they work hard to get this honey for their babies and they want to feed this thing and you don't want to take it in a cruel, inhumane fashion. But it looks like a jar with a spigot on it, and you open the spigot once a week, and it drips out a certain amount of honey, and then you close the spigot, and the bees are none the wiser. You know what I mean? Like they don't care; they're overproducing anyway, and so
Hmm.
like you just take one little bottle because it's like the size of the bottle, the jar, the size of the beehive or whatever
Mhm.
gives you this amount every week, and they're always going to overproduce about this amount. So I could understand if you're a vegan and you don't want to hurt the bees because they're an animal and blah blah blah. But if you have a huge land, or you know somebody with a huge land and they have all these flowers all over their land and they have this kind of design for the beehive where all they do is turn on a tap and get the honey out. They don't destroy their whole hive every week to get the honey.
Mhm.
Well, why is that rude? Why is that animal abuse? Why is that inhumane? That's like the most humane way. That's like gathering eggs from your chicken. So you can eat a protein, you can have a natural antibiotic that is an
Mhm.
animal protein and a animal made antibiotic.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That are both
Absolutely. It's one of the best antibiotic in the world.
if you've ever had eggs from your own chickens, like they're the most delicious eggs you've ever had in your life.
Ooh.
They're so good. They're so good. Anyway, we don't have to talk too much about that. But if you
Of
have any
course,
more
of
to say
course.
about that, you can
Yeah.
keep going.
So you're asking me how. So my one of my ex-girlfriends, she's quite libertarian, even though she's a vegetarian. So she's quite a libertarian. Uh, so she's actually quite good about it. Oh well, you don't eat. You're not vegan. It's okay. Not like most of her friends. So she is quite lenient about that, and she's quite good about that. So that's why I have a lot of respect for her. And at
Right.
the same time, she will still go on investigation. So just to investigate, oh, how the Canadian farms are treating those animals and so on. And from a health perspective, even when you look at animals that's been like have health problem throughout their lives, and if you slaughter and eat them, and the problem is that it may not be the best thing for your health as well. So that's
You
another way
know,
to look at it.
I think I agree with you. It depends on everyone. Eggs are not the best way to go for animal protein, but if you have absolutely zero, and I'm not a doctor, this is an opinion show from the very beginning,
Yeah.
but and obviously you know more about this than me. You have licenses in this area. Like not everybody can eat 12 eggs a day, and I'm not suggesting that everybody go out and buy a dozen eggs a day. But as a libertarian and a capitalist, if you will, I love throwing it in the face of those vegans that say, oh, animal farms are cruel and they're abusing the chickens. No, there's a farm in New Zealand that is a video of the chicken that laid the egg. And you can sit there and watch a video of the chicken laying eggs that laid your egg that you're frying in your fry pan right now. So you got your phone in one hand watching the chicken, and you got the fry pan in the other
Hmm.
frying its egg, and you can see how well treated that chicken is. You know what I mean?
There are lots of
So
farms like that, lots all over the world. Not all of them are
exactly,
bad.
exactly. So if we can like support that as a capitalist, put your money where your mouth is. If you're
Exactly.
really worried about chickens and you're really worried about animal abuse, and that's why you're a vegan, but you do want animal product in your diet, and like you said, you know, some people can, some people can't have eggs. If you can have eggs in your diet, hey, get 10 female chickens and you'll have 3 chicken eggs a day at least. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? You
Well,
feed them
just
well, you treat them
exactly.
good, you love them, and
Exactly. And you know what you can do? Eat one egg a day, sell the other two.
right, exactly. As capitalist, you make money.
Yeah, exactly. It's not just about money. You're as capitalists, what they do is they solve problem.
Yes, yeah.
Every entrepreneur solve problem.
And when we say let the markets, you know, make a solution, we don't even mean that that responsibility falls on the corporations or the people producing. The
Everybody can do
GDP
it.
producers, no, it's not even about producing. It's
Mhm.
about getting together. Now we have Facebook, now we have YouTube, now we have all these things, and we can say, look, there is a market here. If you're producing chicken eggs, this is the way you should do it. And then they do it. And
And
if
then they
there's
do
enough
it.
people behind it, then we all get what we want and
Mhm.
everybody's happy.
And we've seen that in Hong
Oh, but
Kong.
you're an evil corporation. You're gonna do this evil thing, blah 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 blah. They very may well, but if you can also support this part of their company, you know that Tom's, they got that toothbrush that company called Tom's. Crest apparently bought them,
Hmm.
You know what I mean? So they started out as this homegrown thing that did all this like local production and local thing for like Whole Foods Market or whatever. And now they're owned by like the largest producer of toothpaste in the world. So maybe they're actually learning something from that model. And maybe they're actually like converting their mainstream products to be closer to that model. And in the long run, in 50 years or 20 years or whatever, it might be a better overall market because of it. So I'm not necessarily like bashing mega corporations either.
Yeah,
Just,
and I'm gonna quote from a British sheep.
yeah, okay.
I don't remember what the sheep is called. Is that Shaun the sheep?
Shaun the sheep.
I
Okay.
love cartoon. I love animation. So
All right.
absolutely, I'm wearing
Sorry,
in
that's my
100%
dry cough.
agreement. Uh-oh, you're not gonna get me sick through it.
All right. Well, so I have some other notes here that I wanted to talk to you about. There's the CCP and their selection of Carrie Lam. I want to talk to you about Letco and the 1200 seat council.
Mhm.
And I want, before I make my dissertation on it, I want to hear what you have to say about those sort of 5 words: CCP, Carrie Lam, Letco, and the 1200 like voters that elect Carrie Lam, essentially.
Wow, that's a lot of things I'm gonna have to say. Wow,
Okay.
majority of the people in Hong Kong do not like CCP. I'm pretty sure that most libertarians are even the libertarians that's on firmly on the blue side in Hong Kong. They actually not support the CCP at all, but they're on the blue side because they just don't want to see the destruction in the city. They don't want to see the so-called pro-yellow side. They're doing exactly the same thing that Mao did. All the things that they've done. Oh, you disagree with me? Okay, I'm going to destroy. I'm going to destroy you. Or oh, there's a train. Lots of Chinese tourists coming in. So let's burn it down. We've seen it. You've seen it. I've seen it. We're not happy, but doesn't mean that we're pro CCP at all. We're not liking the what's a lot of things. Yes, a lot of things that CCP had done in the past. We do not like it. Yes, it is true that they are changing, they're progressing their way, but it's still a long, very, very long way to go. That's the unfortunate truth.
So how does CCP relate to Carrie Lam, Letco, and the 1200 seats?
We all know that this, well, Carrie Lam, before she was selected as the next chief executive or current chief executive, she was the quote unquote second in command for Hong Kong under CY.
So vice
And
chief?
you can almost say that. So she's called
Okay.
like the vice president kind of way in the American term.
Wow, okay.
And here's some of my inside source. I can't name where my inside source is.
This is an opinion show.
Yeah, it's okay. That's the reality is that CY, the previous chief executive, and Carrie Lam, they did not get
Sorry,
along.
this is a live show. Hold on one second.
Oh, you have a live.
Oh, we're good. Never mind. Never mind. Okay. So keep going.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, it must be for your neighbor or something, eh?
Yeah.
So yes, it is every chief executive in the history of Hong Kong. It is selected by a small committee.
Okay.
So the last one, he was selected by
See
a
what I
small
learned.
committee, CY Learning. Before then, it was
Uh-huh.
Donald Chung, and then before then, the first guy was also named Donald.
Uh-huh. And
Uh,
what's his family name?
Tong,
Tong. So
Tong,
Donald Tong and then Donald Chong.
Chung, yeah, and then Zhang. It's actually Zhang, but
Zhang.
whatever. Zhang, yeah. And then now, and then CY Leung, and then the fourth one, this one is Carrie Lam as well.
Okay. And how many premieres have there been on the Chinese side since 1997?
Ooh, man, I actually don't know that one. I'll need to
Okay.
get back to
That's
you on
fine.
that one.
No, we'll discuss that later.
Mhm.
Okay, so go ahead. Carrie Lam, let go to 1200.
The what this whole protest and this last Occupy movement is all about, right?
Vote.
Canadian, It's that
Okay.
there are a couple of things that's really triggered them because the Chinese and the British they had an agreement to let and allow the Hong Kong people select or elect their chief executive. That is the agreement by democratic vote.
The Sino-British Agreement,
Yeah, the Sino-British agreement,
joint declaration.
joint declaration. Yeah, absolutely. But that was violated. That
It
was mhm,
has been on almost every possible context, as far as
exactly.
I can tell.
Yeah, and this agreement that's pissed off a lot of people in Hong Kong, and
See,
people.
and that's where I think Americans are should be more interested because like and I have Democrat friends that are not money people, like they're not capitalists, so they don't necessarily always understand it this way, but I respect their opinion because they're consultants. They're business to business. When Coca-Cola accidentally sells a bad product and a bunch of people get hurt by it, they need to collaborate with the distributor. They need to collaborate with several other companies that also are involved with that product. So they need my friends to sort of deal with that. You know what I mean?
Mhm,
Because those companies can't necessarily deal with each other, then they look like they're in conspiracy with this product. You know, they're trying
mhm,
to cover something up or whatever. So, I mean, I do respect their opinion as far as business is concerned, but not as capitalists. You know what I
mhm.
mean? And as a capitalist, it's like it's difficult in Hong Kong to side with the local movement. You
Hmm.
know what I mean? They don't. Can you speak more about that? You know?
Oh wow, this is a very touchy and tricky subject. So I'll go a little bit on that too, because right now Hong Kong is very split. What we call the yellow side and the blue side. A
Right.
lot of people expected me to be on either side, either blue side or yellow side, and I'm not on
Yeah,
either side. You're not on either side. I'm not
I
on either
can't.
side. Yeah, we both cannot do it. Where the reason why is, oh, some friends of mine there say, oh, you're libertarian, and therefore you should be on the yellow side. And I listed before that the yellow side had committed a lot of things I consider acts of terrorism. Oh, an old lady, she had a disagreement with a protester. So the protester tackled her down. We're talking about 30-something-year-old man, big guy, about my size. I'm 5'8", and he looks like he's quite fit too. Tackle an old lady who is quite frail in the middle of a street in Causeway Bay. I cannot condone to that. We've seen them try to derail a train, a
Yeah,
freaking train, full of
yeah,
tourists with children inside,
yeah, yeah.
still inside,
They
coming
put
from
that
China.
guy on fire. The guy in the green shirt. They put him on fire.
Mao Shan, that's right by
Hmm.
my studio. That's right by my studio. We've
That
seen
was
that already.
so disastrous. And when I went on the local chats to the local, because I know you went in public, because I was watching some of your live streams. So I
Mhm.
just want people to know, please go to this guy's live stream because he's super cool. So, but you went to the actual live things, but I watched online. And because I was online, I was able to type to a lot of the people that were chanting online in support of the people that were burning that Chinese guy alive. And I said to them, I said, "What are you doing? This is an unnecessary use of force. You know,
Absolutely.
I could.
Who
No one
initiated
was
the use
threatened
of
by this
force?
guy. You guys had 50 people there, and he had one dude that was standing up to you, and you guys just like lost your nerve and went after him physically. That's terrible. That's a terrible, gross. When China comes down on you, I have to support what CCP says because they're going to be right no matter what they say. You violated this guy's rights. He
Exactly.
has the right, just like you do, to stand there in the street and say, hey, what are you doing?
Exactly. We've seen a guy, even though that most of the people in Hong Kong reject what we call the one China principle. I'm not sure if you know what the one China principle is.
I do, and please speak to it.
Okay, sure. I'll talk a little bit more about that. But first, because this guy, he's a big supporter of the one China principle. He's from China, mainland China. He's a banker. He worked for Citigroup,
Hmm.
and he was severely assaulted for that.
I remember that.
Yeah, that was in Central.
I remember that. He was wearing a suit and tie, and he was out there talking to them. You know, the same thing happened to me. I talked to them on that day when the
Hmm.
banker was there. I said, you should go there with your lawyer. You should go there with your politician. Why are you guys not protesting live? They already had if I remember right, when they assaulted the banker, it was right after the election. And that's why they were all riled up, because they just won all 19 seats or whatever it was in the election. So they went and they got this guy and they beat him up. And I said, you guys should have gone there with your lawyer and with your politician and said, look, you're a banker. You need to support us.
Hmm.
We have a group of people here. We are the proletariat, if you will. You know what I mean? We got a lawyer here that supports our claim. We have a politician here that supports our claim, and we need money behind us to support us in our claim to liberty. And they all said, oh, you support China, you support China, you support China. I said, no. If you
We
guys
don't support
can't
labor.
if you guys can't be critical of yourself, how can you be successful? In
Exactly.
that moment, you had almost all of the parts there. You had almost all. You had the media watching you. You had an opportunity to bring a mass of people, the proletariat. You had a
Thank you.
banker there. You had a chance to bring a lawyer and a politician, and you had a chance to bring them all together and put them on the same page and say, look, we have to do this because this is what we all get. We all get our share. The banker gets his share, the businessman gets his share, the media
Hmm.
guy gets the story, the people get whatever they want. And it's not because I'm anti-socialism. It's not because I want Hong Kong people to have to pay for their condo. No, if Hong Kong people want government housing, let them have government housing and then complain about 400 square feet. No, come on. You know what I
Exactly.
mean? Like you want your government housing, have your government housing. You want the Chinese people to stop abusing the situation, come up with a solution. I have solutions. You have Samzan there. You have 30 million people in Samzan. What is it to them to build 5 million houses right along that awesome border wall that we built? Hong Kong built an awesome border wall, and right on the other side of it, Hong Kong is going to buy all the land. We got a rich government. We can afford to buy all the land in Samzan. So
Hmm.
we just buy enough to build 5 million houses or 7 million houses right on the other side of that border wall. And then we give everybody who lives in one of those houses a special Hong Kong ID that says they can come over the border wall every day. But they live in their house over there. So you can double the population of Hong Kong overnight by putting 5 million residents in those houses, and you don't have to affect the government housing in Hong Kong. You don't have to affect the healthcare of Hong Kong. You don't have, because they have a special ID. When they go to the government, it's just like me. If I get a drug test, if I get a HIV test in Hong Kong, I have to pay 1,000 Hong Kong dollars. So do they.
Hmm.
You go get an HIV test and you have a Hong Kong ID, it's free for you. The government
Hmm.
pays for that. And that's what Hong Kong people are complaining about. And that's what they deserve. If that's what they want and their government can afford it, why do I have a problem with that? So
I have a
I don't know.
solution as well.
Yeah, go ahead. Let's hear it.
I'm more than just a libertarian. I would say just abolish all of that. I'm an anarcho-capitalist, so
Yeah, okay.
just completely abolish all of that. It is not the government's job to take care of the people. It is not the government's job to be
I agree with
to
you.
interfere with the market at all.
I agree with
Those
you.
are all completely interference into the market.
Yes.
Completely abolish that. I say no social housing, no government handout. I'm not happy about this government handout too. I'm very unhappy about that. Hong Kong people in the past, in the 70s, 80s, when the British, they say that we're just going to practice laissez-faire. That's it. What does that mean? We're not going to take care of you. You guys do whatever you like. We'll just be nice to you, but we will not interfere with your daily lives. Sounds good? Sounds good. Because there's too many different there are too many different ethnic groups in Hong Kong. Too many. My mom's in a different ethnic group. She's Hakka, and we have the local, what they call the Punti, and the seafaring people. And then you have a lot of immigrants coming in from China since the 70s, and they still have their mother tongue. They still have their dialect. They all speak different languages, and they have they're very distinct different culture. So how is the government going to, let's just say, oh, take care of all these people? You cannot. It's just not possible.
I
So
totally agree. I totally agree. But in
mhm,
Hong Kong, up to this point, the people as a whole have been successful. The government has used capitalist policy. And here's the thing, in Hong Kong, here's where I have to agree with the CCP. This is where, like you and I, we disagree with the Yellow Movement, because sometimes we have to agree with the CCP because legally they're right. You know what I mean? If legally they're right, what can I say? I can say I don't agree. I could say I'm an anarcho-capitalist and say that I support you 100% of what you said,
Mhm.
but that's not the reality of the
That's the
situation on the
reality
ground.
situation. That's
Right. And
unfortunate.
so the reality of the situation on the ground is the government of Hong Kong is a very profitable corporation. Carrie
Exactly.
Lam is the chief executive. She's not a president. She's not a prime minister. She's not a
Hmm.
politician. She's a businesswoman. And she's
Exactly.
expected to run the country as a businesswoman would run the country. And what does a business do with its profit? It takes care of its employees. It provides things for its employees. So
Hmm.
if all of its employees are the people of Hong Kong and they want to apply for public housing and the public housing that the government makes available is acceptable, I have no argument with that.
Hmm.
None, because they're using a capitalist mechanism to perform a socialist
Which is
function.
boggle my mind. I know. I know. It's
And
always been
if
like that.
I'm not saying it works. I'm not saying it's great. I'm not saying I love it. I'm saying it's the way Hong Kong is and it functions here. I don't live in that situation. I live in a private housing situation
Mhm.
with people that don't need those options,
Yeah.
to be quite honest with you. So
Exactly.
I don't know what those options are. If I
Every
go to the
s-
hospital, I go to a private hospital. I don't go to a public
yeah,
hospital. So,
almost every successful country in the world, they have this kind of mixed economy. Canada, US, England, European
right,
nations, they
right.
use a capitalism system
Yes,
to collect
yes,
money because every
yes,
country or every government will collect about 16%, somewhere around that range there, of the GDP in their country,
right.
and
Well,
then they'll use it to fund their
that's
program.
that's back to my point and what you were saying about the one policy, the one China policy. It's one China. Technically, the government of Hong Kong is renting the land of Hong Kong. That's why it's a corporation because we pay
Hmm.
rent.
Hmm.
We've either paid rent or we're going to pay rent or we need to pay rent or there's rent paid. And it's to
Hmm.
the CCP. And since we pay rent to the CCP, we agree by admission of paying that rent as a capitalist nation, we agree by paying that we're they own the land. If they
Hmm.
own the land, it's their land. They can kick us out anytime they want. You know what I mean? And
That is the unfortunate truth right now.
that's where you and I more or less start to draw the line and start to support the yellow movement. And that's what I find is interesting is
Hmm.
because when we support the yellow movement, we support the yellow movement. I support the yellow movement, but I support the fast train to Guangzhou. You know what I mean? And the
Hmm.
yellow movement doesn't support the fast train to Guangzhou. And I'm like, what are you talking about? There's like 70 million people right over the border, and you don't want them coming here for day trips on the fast train, spending their money in Hong Kong?
Hmm.
You're complaining because they built a high speed rail to the largest market of money spending people on the planet?
It
Like,
makes no sense.
Guangzhou
Considering
is the like it's literally the 11th largest GDP on the planet or something like that.
yeah,
Like it's literally like
20 years ago, Hong Kong contributed over 20% of the GDP to China.
keep talking,
It's a huge
please.
change. And well, right now the number is less than 5%. But
Of course.
the number in constant economically speaking, Hong Kong is the well was the number one destination of tourism. That's why they built Disneyland in here. They have the whole Marvel theme and Star Wars theme. May the fork be with you. Hopefully that will piss off a lot of geeks.
Woo!
They had Ocean Park. I still remember Ocean Park. Well, Ocean Park's amazing.
I went
You
there
know,
right before it closed.
yeah, exactly.
It's
They have a lot of different tourist destinations in here. The Big Buddha, I like going hiking up there. I'm not Buddhist, but I like hiking up there. They have a lot of things in here, lots of things to offer in Hong Kong. And to close it down, to close Hong Kong down from, let's just say, from just start with China first, because unfortunately, mainland China, they contribute most of the tourism to
I
Hong
looked it up
Kong.
on Wikipedia. It's 68 million per year, which is more than a million per week, and it's around 30 million per year from mainland China. So you have about 40% of all flights in Hong Kong, of all
That's from mainland
passengers,
China.
are from mainland.
That's
About 50,
mainland China. That's a crazy
right?
number. Can you imagine if a factory lost 40% of its production in 1 year, or 40% of its
Overnight,
customers overnight?
overnight,
That's why I'm in Hong Kong right now.
right?
That's actually the reason why I'm in Hong
Me
Kong right
too.
now.
Me too.
Because overnight in the Canadian film industry at the time lost 40% of its production in 1 year.
That's what I argue with my Hong Kong friends. My Hong Kong friends say, "Why can you still go to Starbucks? Don't you support the yellow movement?" I say, "Yeah, I support the yellow movement, but my paycheck is in RMB. So when I spend money at Starbucks, I'm spending RMB at Starbucks. I'm bringing money into this country.
Hmm.
Maxim's is still a Hong Kong corporation.
Yeah.
And I'm an American. So I want to support my Americans and I want to support Hong Kong. And the best way for me to do that is to bring money into this country. And the best way for me to do that is to use a Chinese credit card that gets paid in RMB in China
Hmm.
and bring that money here by giving it to Maxim's. You know what I mean? Without having to do a bank transfer.
Here is the best quote I've heard from a long time. Have you heard of Frederick Bastiat?
Not off the hand. Not off, I
No,
can't.
okay. He
I'm
was
not.
one of the classical economists, and he said this: if goods do not cross the border,
Frederick
soldiers will.
Basquiat.
Yeah,
Yeah, I think I've heard that name.
yeah. He had a lot of influence on von Mises, and I read a lot from von Mises and Milton
So what's
Friedman.
the quote?
If goods don't cross the border, soldiers will.
Exactly. Exactly.
And there's more than just goods and money crossing the
Uh-huh.
border. It's idea.
Yes.
Idea. Why is it that yes, China had opened up the last 30, 40 years? Because the idea had already been seeking into them. We were winning. We were winning. It's slow, but we were winning because our idea has been sweeping toward China. But unfortunately, this movement actually caused a lot more
So,
damage to it.
there's the term in English, those are fighting words. So for the sake of this conversation, I can say those are COVID-19 words. Are you suggesting that because of the yellow movement, I don't like calling it the liberty movement any more than you do, the yellow movement in Hong Kong, China more or less released a bioweapon?
This is the whole COVID-19 thing now. We before the show we were gonna say gonna talk about that.
Okay.
So we have theories. You have theories. So
Have theories, yeah.
yeah, I'm a certified nutritionist
Uh-huh.
and a certified fitness coach.
That's one of the
So
main reasons why I wanted to have you on, because I have some scientific analyses, quote unquote, if you will,
yeah,
that seem pretty far-fetched. So keep
sitting
talking.
perfect. Okay, sure. So I'm going to give you all my theories. That are the same theories
Yeah.
I've given to
Uh-huh.
Jack and
Yeah.
his wife, the philosopher.
Okay.
And oh, like what? All right, the most predominant theory. This is from World Health Organization and John Hopkins and so on. I read a lot from John Hopkins. So they consider that it's possibly jump from animal to human. And it is true that viruses, for example, SARS, MERS, and so on, and many different diseases, they do jump from animal to human from time to time. And usually, in most cases, they don't infect very well and they will die off very quickly. So SARS, for example, pretty much disappear within a year. But
Right.
this COVID-19, not so. So it
Right.
leads to my second theory, not my second, the second theory that I've been offered so far, and I'll offer the same list.
Okay, so back to the first theory before you go on.
Sure, sure.
You don't believe in the bats, you don't believe in the animal theory, any of those animal theories, the fish market, the bats, because they don't even sell bats in Wuhan market, like apparently. So
I
do you,
have no idea if they do
you
sell
don't have
bats.
any idea about any of those. But
Yeah.
strictly from your scientific
Hmm.
perspective, you've already ruled out number one because you think that it's not likely that it would come from an animal.
I would say that there is a possibility. I need some more peer review on that one
Okay.
because I don't know for sure. With great certainty, I don't know. This is from my favorite. This is a quote from my favorite comedian slash pseudo economist. You know who that is, right?
No, I don't.
Uh, Krugman, Paul
Group?
Krugman,
Oh, I have
Dr.
no
Paul
idea.
Krugman. Yeah, yeah. He is a Nobel Prize laureate in economic and a very, very diehard Keynesian.
Mm,
And
mm.
I consider Peter Schiff my teacher. We never
Oh,
met
wow. Oh,
because I
wow.
read a lot of his stuff. And he and Peter Schiff had a bet. Peter Schiff won the bet.
So Peter Schiff believes in the 5G theory.
I do not know that. Haven't really heard from him that much lately. So
Oh,
we will go through that.
he's been on crazy ass Alex Jones,
Yeah, that
talking about his like theories, Peter
yeah,
Schiff.
I heard about that too. I'll go through that period.
Yeah.
Now, in
So
terms of the
number
first,
two,
yeah, well, let
okay,
me
go back to
finish
the
off the
one.
first one first, okay?
All right, yeah, yeah, yeah.
Now, the thing is, I don't necessarily believe that it's the first theory because of one reason. If they say that it came from bats or a different animal, we don't know which one yet, possibly bats. Okay, let's just say for the sake of
That's the
argument bats.
predominant one I've heard.
Okay, the problem, number one, is that Chinese people always cook their meat. Anytime you superheat any kind of meat or anything, you destroy the virus or bacteria or whatever it's in there. So this is time it's a virus. You would destroy it,
So now,
and
can you explain that? Because like they're saying that they're pulling viruses out of the snow in the Arctic after 15,000 years and stuff like that. How is it possible to pull viruses out? Do they have to revive them somehow?
yeah. So or
So
bacteria or virus.
once you kill it in the meat, or hypothetically speaking, the meat of this bat, and then by cooking it, it's dead now. The virus, the meat, everything is dead.
The protein capsid that is destroyed. It literally melts away. It this
Melts away.
Yeah, this COVID-19 was the temperature, the highest temperature it can resist, it's up to about 58 degrees Celsius.
Is that all?
Yeah, it's actually not
You
that
don't even have
hot.
to boil water.
You don't even have to boil water. That's what I've read so far, but I need to
That's like
verify that.
room temperature in some of these wet markets.
I wouldn't say that because room temperature in wet market, we're talking about just outside normal temperature.
Yeah, but I mean, it can be quite warm in there, especially if you're cooking things.
It could be. So I don't really believe in it, but so they don't really have they're still trying to figure out how it came about. John Hopkins also said that, well, they wrote that it is possibly from there.
Hmm.
I actually just read about this, and I also just had a talk about that in my broadcast in Being Libertarian in Hong Kong.
Mm.
So we still don't know exactly where it's from. We need a peer review, scientific review, before we say this is the definite. Now, here's my second theory now, where
Yeah.
a lot of Hong Konger and some US people are saying this now. We know that for a fact that there is a level 4 security research lab, bio-research lab
Right.
in
Yeah.
Wuhan, just about 20 miles away from city center,
Hmm.
somewhere around that range there. I don't know what that is in kilometer, but you know that miles, so well, you're American. I'm not American, eh?
Yeah.
And
How many kilometers is it?
20 kilometers, that's sorry, 20 miles away, that's not too
Oh,
far.
20 miles. So it's like 35 kilometers.
Oh, okay, yeah, you know that. So half an hour away.
Yeah,
It
yeah.
was built by the French several years ago. It's
Hmm.
joint effort with the Chinese.
Hmm.
So a lot of people claim that it leaked from there.
Right.
And like I
I
said,
saw I saw documentary yesterday from the Epoch Times that was quoting that. And when I showed it to some of my American friends, they're like, "Oh, Epoch Times, that's Falun Gong."
mhm, exactly.
So, do you believe the Falun Gong idea?
Me, come on. I eat kosher. What do you think?
I don't really know that much about Falun Gong. I know that there's differing opinions about them, but I don't know if I would go to the Falun Gong about, conspiracy theories for the
Uh,
COVID-19. That
Meh,
doesn't mean they were wrong. It just
doesn't mean
means that,
anything.
right.
Yeah,
Okay.
any of those theory I propose out there doesn't mean
Yeah.
anything because we have not done any peer review.
Right. Okay.
So if we're not haven't done any peer review,
So
we cannot
even
say
your idea, the second idea that you're discussing, you don't think it's been peer reviewed enough to be verified.
exactly
Okay.
any of those theory. Now, we actually don't know exactly what kind of viruses that they had been researching in that lab.
Mhm.
They There is a paper in late January that came out from India, from the University of, I believe it was from Bombay. That's in India. So this team of scientists, they did propose a theory, or they did had a paper that they also said that it's not peer reviewed yet. So it was quickly taken down. They did wrote that they did write that. Sorry, my grammar. Write that there are four inserts of HIV-1 virus amino acid into the RNA of this coronavirus. And we know that this coronavirus, well, all coronaviruses are RNA viruses anyway, and they're not very stable. Now, it's not been peer reviewed yet, so I will take it with a grain of salt. Really grain of salt.
Yeah, I've heard similar things, that not only that, but for instance, the spike protein. Do you know what this is?
Hmm.
There's a specific kind of protein within all viruses called the spike protein. And I guess the way it explained to me is it's like a finger that reaches out from the virus and touches the cell.
Yeah.
Okay. And the way that it touches the cell either allows it to withdraw or it enters the cell. If it's sharp enough, like a knife, the spike protein is actually sharp like a knife. It can actually pierce the cell and get into the cell. And that's what causes this. So, but all spike proteins, apparently, according to what I heard, which is the second theory that you're professing, most similar to that, is that the spike protein itself has a DNA structure, or a RNA structure, as you might put it, that is like a fingerprint. Is this something that you're familiar with? That it's super identifiable down to the virus where each spike protein comes from. So for instance, if I had a lupus spike protein and I compared it to a common cold spike protein, or a polio spike protein, or a Spanish flu spike protein, they would all have very individual like markers that showed
Yes.
me this is exactly from this. And scientists who are familiar with all of these things, they look at it and they go, oh yeah, that's the fingerprint from polio. That's the spike protein from this thing. That's the spike protein from that thing.
Yeah.
So the spike protein, apparently from this coronavirus, which you're saying is not peer reviewed, is identical to the SARS-1. Have you heard that argument?
I heard of that too, and
What do you think about that?
I need to double check on that. But what you said before is that it's like a fingerprint. We like to think of it as like a, you know what, those because this coronavirus, the capsid is surrounded by what you call the spike protein, so it's like a Velcro. Yes,
Right.
what you said before, it is specific to different animals or species of animals and so on. And there are many different families of or strains of coronavirus. There are only seven right now that we know so far that can infect human being. Four of them cause common cold and flu. One caused MERS. One caused SARS. And now you have this COVID-19. Now this,
Do you think COVID-19 is S2? Is what I'm asking.
uh, with great certainty, I don't know because I need to double check on that
All right.
because that's
You
right.
think it's a your thoughts now are that it's a separate virus.
I believe that there's that possibility. I think that it could be. I need to double check on that because I have not. I'm not a virologist. I'm a nutritionist, so that's a little
Yeah,
different.
yeah, yeah. Of course.
Yeah. So it's quite different. From what I can say so far, from what I've read from Harvard, from different theories so far, is that yes, they're still saying that it is a virus that might have changed or mutated from bats. But like I
Right.
said,
So
we
that's
don't
the
know for
first
sure.
theory.
That's a
That's the
fresh
first
theory.
theory.
But is it engineered in the lab? The only way we can tell is that if we can find the papers, go into that lab, release all the paper, that we can find out exactly what they have research on. So we don't know.
How
We
about your
don't know.
third theory?
All right, this is from China now. I have heard that from a lot of the yellow movement, not from yellow movement, the blue movement, and from mainland China.
Uh-huh.
Even some of my friends from overseas, they are extremely pro CCP because they're loyal to a cult.
Right. Well,
Well,
there's a lot
every
of people
government,
looking for their football team.
yeah, every single government is a cult anyway.
Yeah,
Every single one
exactly.
of them.
I
And
agree.
so this theory right there is that it came from the US.
I agree with
So
that.
yeah, you that's what you think too, right?
Full disclosure, that's what I agree with.
Okay. All right, sure. So they say that it was genetically engineered in the US, not sure where, and then they drop it into Wuhan.
I would disagree with that because apparently during the Obama administration, Xi Jinping or the CCP in general requested from the Wuhan level 4 whatever. This is like back to number 2. And how we know that they were working on this actual virus is because during Obama, the CCP requested from Obama that this specific virus, which Bill Gates had registered, would go
Hmm.
to that Wuhan thing, and
Yeah.
so or laboratory, sorry, but um, and then I think it either honestly got leaked like through an air vent and just happened to like travel over to the like fish market, and that's where it started. But the back to the first theory that it came from like an animal is like the second theory, sorry, is where it came from like a laboratory. The people in epoch times, they say that there were 14 original cases that where all the documents from the lab, the military, the CCP military came in and swiped all of those documents for those original 14 cases. So originally you had something like 41 cases, of which 14 were these cases that were not in any way connected with the specific fish market. And it's a
Hmm.
fish market, not a bat market, according to Epoch Times, you know, which like, so where did those 14 people go? Who are they?
We don't
And
know.
where did they come from? If they were 14 people from that laboratory that happened to shop at that fish market because, you know what I mean?
Hmm.
Or their family members, maybe they never go shopping. They're doctors and stuff that let it out by accident. Maybe they got infected by accident and then they went home and their helper or their chef or their cook or their whatever went shopping and they went to that market and then spread it from that market. But you had these number of people that started at the beginning, and the Chinese government came in and destroyed all the original samples, all the original blood samples, all the original documents, all the original everything for those 41 people, including the 14. And so after that, a czar was set up to run the thing. And that group of people was like set up by the propaganda czar of the CCP. And like, he's like third in line or whatever. But
Hmm.
so, I mean, you have all these different parties that are professing that it came out of this laboratory. But I think personally, Xi Jinping solicited it from Obama. Obama had the thing registered by Bill Gates in America and said, "Yeah, you can have this thing. What are you going to give me for it?" You know what I mean?
Hmm.
And he said, "I'll be a good little boy until you're out of office. And when you're out of office, the Republicans are going to get in office, and they're going to have to deal with this problem." That's why Fauci, like 3 months ago, was saying during the Trump administration. I think it was more than 3 months ago now. I can't remember when, but Fauci said Trump is going to have to deal with some kind of viral infectious disease within his presidency. So
That I actually do not know.
yeah, there's like, I mean, I've seen so many,
Hmm.
conspiracy theories and
Yeah.
everything. So
So that's still a predominant theory from the mainland Chinese.
ah,
Now, this is my theory now. This is the other
yeah, yeah,
theory. Okay?
okay,
And I'm gonna start by singing one of my favorite songs of all time.
yay, here we go. I've been waiting for this an hour.
All right, ready?
Yeah.
Blame Canada, blame Canada. We're not a real country anyway. All right, this is, I am not kidding you. I'm gonna say this. It possibly came from Canada.
Oh my God, come on.
You were like, what? Yes. Well, the
Keep
RCMP,
going.
okay, all right. The RCMP, that is the
Royal
Canadian
Canadian.
Mountain Police, A.
Uh-huh.
You know, those guys with the rat with the hat and the red suit and they're on a horse.
Uh-huh.
Only
I
for
I
ceremonial, by the way. All
understand
right.
that. Yeah, okay.
These guys there, they were investigating a why the Prime Minister of Canada, Prime Minister of Canada at
Uh-huh.
the time, uh, that decided to all of a sudden ship a whole bunch of pathogens, viruses, even coronavirus samples to China last year. A year ago, yes, we have the documentation for it. We had the
Ah, yeah.
article. Yeah, your eyes lit up like what? Yeah. We had the article from Edmonton Journal and also from National Post.
Wow.
And I did not even know about that until February when, guess who spoke about that? I have to speak Canadian, eh?
Really?
Yeah, guess who spoke about that?
No idea.
That will be Dr. Francis Boyle. In the
Huh.
80s, Dr. Francis Boyle, he was one of the author. Well, no, not one of the. He was the author for the Bioweapon Act in the U.S.
Yeah, I've heard about this guy.
Yeah,
He's
he's not.
also on Alex Jones.
Yeah, he's not some small potato.
Uh,
We're talking about some really big one. And
yeah.
even Dr. James Leon Boyle, he also had something along the line as well. And he is a virologist, a
Huh.
researcher, and he worked with CDC. He has his own
Huh.
company, and he is not some small potato.
That's
And
crazy.
considering that, and considering how poorly Justin Trudeau had handled pretty much every situation in Canada so far back in my home country, it is pretty much safe to say that there is that possibility that's where it came from.
Yeah, it might have been multiple sources. That's why there's multiple strains.
Yeah, there are two main strains right now, the L strain and the S strain.
I don't know anything about that, but keep talking.
Yeah, one strain, I don't remember which is which now, but I believe that S strain is the older strain, L strain is the newer and more aggressive. And I've just read this today too. And the Chinese had also confirmed that they actually knew about this virus since late October. So this is my own personal theory, but still take it with a grain of salt, please. So the Canadian,
Yeah, no, this is totally an opinion show. We're not doctors. We're not
yeah,
lawyers. We're
we're
not
not
any of
doctors.
that.
Yeah, I'm a
We just
nutritionist.
live
Except
in Hong Kong. We hear the word on the street, and this is the word you're hearing on the street. This is the word I'm hearing on the street. We have come up with 3 or 4 or 5 different theories here in the means of an hour over the course of an
exact,
hour,
exactly.
and
So
now I'm not committed to any one of my theories. I was committed to my theory until I heard your theory,
you're like
and then
you're interesting,
now I'm
right?
like, hey, let me figure this out and find
Yeah.
my own idea. So I really
So
encourage everybody to like really do their own idea and
well,
figure it out
research,
for
really
themselves.
research
Of
it.
course, of
Exactly.
course, of course.
So I believe that last year, well, we know that last year Justin Trudeau sent a whole bunch of pathogens to China for no apparent reason. No explanation was ever given except for, oh, let's just do a
Who
cross
received it? Are
China.
there any reception papers? Did
Yeah,
anybody
China.
sign the receiving end? Like, are there any like documents of all the receiving?
Yeah, the
Who
RCMP
received
has
it?
it.
Who signed it?
But we know that it's the Wuhan lab in China.
Do you guys have like FOIA, like Federal Information? Act in Canada?
I will send it to you. I will send it
Yeah,
to you
that'd be. Put
because
it
it is.
in the comments. Put it in the
Oh,
comments after we post the show.
okay, sure. Well, it is on National Post. That's a Canadian. That's a major news network in Canada, by the way.
Okay.
It's one of the most credible one. So we have been asking this question: why is it that the Canadian Prime Minister sent a whole bunch of dangerous pathogens, dangerous pathogen to China?
Right,
We're,
right.
we're trying to figure out why. We have
Yeah,
no idea. The only explanation was ever given is that, oh, this is a uh, joint program between the Chinese and Canadian in understanding viruses and bacteria. That's all he ever
right.
said.
Well,
And
that's what Obama said. Is that was like the whole premise of the Obama argument that it came from America was that he was sending it from North Carolina to this university level 4 lab because
yeah,
apparently Wuhan is a university level 4 lab. It's not like a
exactly,
regular level 4 lab.
exactly. The
So he was
Winnipeg
sending,
lab is the same thing too. Oh,
yeah, right.
Winterpeg, Manitoba. I have to do a Canadian joke because it's so cold there. The other thing that we need to know is that pretty much everything, almost everything that the Canadian Prime Minister had done, he had botched it.
So let me, that's really typical, I find, of major governments. Um, so that's not really a conspiracy theory. That's more like a natural, everyone will guess that. Because she was kind of like a white Obama, in my opinion.
I think he's a little worse than that. He is actually quite racist.
Oh, really?
He is
That's
actually
terrible.
quite racist. He had been caught funding ISIS terrorists
Oh,
to quote unquote help their medical system.
oh, good for them.
I know what. Yeah, and the ISIS terrorists, what did they do? Bought weapons and they killed off a lot of Yazidi people, a lot of Jews, a lot of Christians in the Middle East, committed genocide. And when
Okay, so I
I'll
have
stop.
two more theories about COVID.
Sure, go for it.
My first theory, which I'm not necessarily believe in, is 5G. And this is the one that I want to hear. I want to stretch the limits of your scientific knowledge on this one because it's a big leap.
Good,
And
because
then,
I have
and
just so
then
happened. Yeah, go
the
ahead.
other theory I have has to do with the New World Order. So it's kind of a different. It's a hypothetical more than an
Okay,
actual
sure.
credibility
Well,
argument.
let's start with the 5G because you asked the
Yes,
right question.
yes, yes.
You have no idea how many people ask me about that. And just so happens, someone in my household is a 5G expert.
Oh, great. That's awesome. So let's hear what you have to say. Or I will tell you what I heard
Go
because
ahead.
it's the craziest nonsense that I've like come up with.
Go ahead.
But it's so crazy that it just might be true. You know what I mean? Like I'm like, no way. So basically, if you imagine putting an orange into a microwave, even if the microwave is relatively low energy, if it's concentrated enough, some of the orange will leak out onto the plate that's in the middle of the, you know what I mean, in the middle of the microwave. So that part that leaks out once it's been affected by the microwaves in the microwave, that is RNA.
Mm-hmm.
And RNA is the equivalent of a virus in most cases when it comes to humans. So, depending on which vibration you use or which wavelength you use in your microwave, it will vibrate the middle of that orange just right so that just this kind of juice comes out.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? That's the best analogy that I've come up with. So, in terms of the orange, that's the cell. And in terms of the microwave, that's the 5G network. And Wuhan is apparently the first 5G, like 100% 5G network in all of China. So for the world.
Can you wait 20 seconds? My
Yeah,
battery's low. I'm gonna get the
yeah, yeah.
charger.
Okay. All right. So while he go gets him his charger, we'll have some other stuff that we can talk about. Basically, Mike is a not only a nutritionist, but I think he's a trainer as well, and he's also a professional singer. He is part of the Being Libertarian team, and I think he's an admin on their team on Facebook. He will post his links down below after I post this video so that you can find him and Being Libertarian Hong Kong if you want to support them. They, I think they have merch and stuff that you can buy on their Facebook. But definitely, he's a singer coach, and definitely he knows a lot about fitness and other stuff. We've talked extensively about the liberty movement here in Hong Kong, and we don't always agree because, you know, anarcho-capitalists are like that. We don't always agree, but I think it's that difference of opinion that I want to bring him. Welcome
That's
back.
the beauty of the world. That's the beauty of the world. People should never agree on everything.
I agree.
If people agree on everything, it's boring. We're robots.
I agree. We have 185
No, you're disagreeing.
countries. We have 185 countries in the world right now affected by COVID-19. And I think we should have 1,800 countries in the world that are affected by COVID-19. Because I think that would be 1,800 ways of dealing with this problem, and one of them is going to be the right way. And the guy who finds it first gets to keep all the money.
More than that, couple of porn stars say that they will have sex with that scientist.
Right?
Whoever.
Right?
And
who's not going to pay for that cure? If you had 1,800 different CDCs working on the cure, you might find it. But if you have one world government working on this, they're not going to find it. So back to my 5G argument.
Sure.
We have the orange idea is the cell of the human cell, and the 5G network is the microwave. And the environment that this happened to be is fully set up in Wuhan, which is reasonable. It's Hebei. Hebei is one of the bigger, you know, areas of China. And it's also, you know, one of the most not necessarily political or financial hub of China. So it's kind of like a good place for them to have 5G and experiment with it and try it out. And it's not going to necessarily affect their politics or their business.
This is what I have to say. I don't agree with the whole 5G theory. There's no way I will ever buy that theory.
Okay.
Because just so happen, I have a 5G expert in my household.
So what do you say about H3N2?
All right, let me ask you a couple of questions. Yeah. When did Hong Kong start using or launching 5G?
I don't think that I know that answer.
Go ahead.
I don't think they have 5G.
They just did this month.
Oh, okay.
Very recent. So the data and the data and the number does not make any sense. That hang on a second. 5G just launched this month in Hong Kong in April, but we had our first case of COVID-19 in January.
Yeah, but like more than three-quarters of the cases are imported.
Yeah, exactly. So if that's the case, when they leave that area, they shouldn't have that.
And the whole like idea with this whole 5G idea is predicated on correlation, not causation. Okay. So
yeah, but people say that
we all know that correlation is not causation, but the argument itself is predicated on correlation, not on causation.
Not causation, so, and that's my problem too.
Right, that's my problem with the argument. So, but the argument so far that I've heard that's predicated on correlation is that from 1918, every major technological advance that humankind has made has resulted in some kind of viral outbreak. You have Spanish flu, you have polio, you have H3N2, which is Hong Kong flu in 1968, and then you have H1N1, which coincided with like 2G, 4G, and then now you have 5G, which correlates with this. So the Spanish flu correlated with the electrification of the world. That's when like Thomas Alva Edison and like all these like inventors and stuff, they like all got together around the world and started making 110 and 210 systems. That's why Hong Kong is on 210 because we're British, and that's why Japan is on 110. It's because they're American. So it's kind of like, we're on these two different systems, and those systems were decided around the same time that we had Spanish flu. And then later during World War II, World War I, we had polio, and polio was a direct result of radar and radiation that was coming off of the radar that all of the military were using to like track airplanes and track ships and track everything around the world. And then you have H3N2, which is the 1968 Hong Kong flu. And that was caused by major disruptions to the electrostratosphere as a result of two things, as far as I know: satellites being launched, and simultaneously the US government testing H-bombs on the electrostratosphere in the actual atmosphere. That's like the last layer of atmosphere. They were studying these in 1960s, like 65, 67, 68, whatever. So like around the same time, and they were literally sending H-bombs up into this stratosphere trying to explode this. I mean, you can look up Operation Fishbowl. It's on Wikipedia. Like it's just called Operation Fishbowl. It's super easy. But, like basically all of the viruses correspond. Corollary argument here, they correspond directly to all of, like, within 6 months, like, and they're like, yeah. So anyway,
this is my question now. And how did which scientific experiment were they doing during the Black Plague?
They're assuming that had something to do with EMFs from the sun. So there's coronal mass ejections that have electromagnetic fields in them. And in the 1860s, there was a major coronal mass ejection into the Northern America region.
No, Black Plague. Black Plague.
Yeah. Oh, I'm just explaining that in the 1860s, that coronal mass ejection sent off an EMF in the direction of the United States. It hit the United States, and all of the telegraph wires were burned, like literally caught on fire at that time in America. So that's how strong EMFs can be from the sun. And so they're assuming that there may have been some constant or consistent disruption in the activity of the sun during the plague that would have caused those magnetic or magnetic electric waves, like microwaves, to disrupt the cells in the same way that modern vaccines.
Yeah, but the Black Plague was between 1347 and 1355.
Right.
So it affected mostly in Europe. So I'm like, yeah. Now
EMF,
here are
electromagnetic fields from the sun, from coronal mass ejections.
Now here is something that we would need to look at. Look at the radiation in electromagnetic spectrum. Right? 5G, the spectrum right there, it's between radio wave and microwave, right?
Okay.
What about visible
light? Yes.
I'm looking at my source right now. This is from Imperial College in London.
Okay.
And what about for visible light?
I don't know.
It's a lot more higher. Okay?
I'm assuming it is because photons are quite heavy, actually.
Those are called non-ionizing radiation.
Right.
And of course, sound will be a lot more lower.
Right.
I deal with sound because I'm also a professional musician, a professional singer. So I deal with sound all the time.
Sound, water, electricity, they're all magnetism, they're all various elements of a similar kind of theory.
If you
the physicists haven't exactly figured it all out.
They're still trying to figure out. We're still not even on the same level of Nikola Tesla yet, not even close. We still haven't caught up to him yet. And Nikola Tesla, I believe it was him who said that if you want to look at the world, you have to look at the world in terms of vibration.
Right.
In terms of vibration.
That's exactly why I think the 5G argument is so interesting, is because if we happen to find exactly the right wavelength that could release a virus like this from the DNA, as you know, within the human, all you need is a comorbidity.
There is a
And
problem with that argument, though,
yeah, what is that?
because low frequency non-ionizing radiation cannot penetrate through the human body.
Well, apparently the human body can only block stuff that's within certain gigahertz, and
Within a
so
certain section,
5G is outside of that spectrum, as you call it.
it's inside the spectrum.
It's inside. Okay, well,
So
there you go.
I
There's the
have the
argument.
source. I have the source right
Uh,
in my hand right now
yeah,
from
yeah, yeah.
Imperial College. So if you go higher, those are called ionizing radiation. So you have ultraviolet, the UV,
Uh-huh.
that
Uh-huh.
can penetrate, partially penetrate.
Red.
Okay. The next thing you have X-ray that will completely
Okay.
penetrate.
Right.
And we know we guys like penetration.
I'm sure. I'm sure. Depends on the kind of guy, though, you know.
And the next thing you know, then you have the radiation that turn man into a green giant, the Hulk. That's the gamma
Okay.
ray. Hulk
The
smash!
gamma ray.
I'm a Marvel comic geek, so a big Marvel comic geek.
I think that's your number one redeeming quality. I used to work in a science fiction museum, so I've met my share of geeks. I'll put it that way.
Well, too bad the Hulk is not my favorite character.
My favorite character, I think, is probably Beast from X-Men. He
My
best
favorite character.
represents my approach to life.
Yeah, the
Who's
one I
yours?
relate to the most, it's the Wolverine.
Oh, okay. You have the He-Man Jesus complex. I understand that.
Absolutely, absolutely. Can't deny it.
Respect. I have the Gnostic alchemist complex. I'll put it that way. That's the kind of anarcho-capitalist I am.
Yeah.
Well,
So,
so we've talked a
yes.
lot about coronavirus. We've talked a lot about these things. Like I said, this is just an opinion show. We're just giving our opinions. We're not trying to go into too much detail on any one topic. But I do want to talk about, like I was saying earlier, you have some gym activities that you're doing and some singing activities that you're doing. And you're also part of the Being Libertarian admins
Mhm.
on Facebook. So can you talk more about any one of those projects that you're working on outside of YouTube?
Okay, sure. I'm gonna start with being libertarian first because 2 years ago I was invited to join being libertarian as one of the admin,
Hmm.
and I started with being libertarian Canada.
Okay.
So I just post a lot of memes, jokes, and so on, and people love those. People love my post there. So my first post is like, I just switched the quote between Selma Hayek and Friedrich Hayek.
Oh, okay.
So I got Selma Hayek talk about economic.
Uh-huh.
The curious task is that how little human knows Hayek, and then below that I have Friedrich Hayek, and the quote is, "In my next movie, I play a little girl," something like that along the line, and and people had a good laugh of it, a very good laugh of it, and we know like people like it Selma Hayek because she is gorgeous, even for her age. And so that's really where I started. And now
Right.
we started a
Sure.
new page where it's called Being Libertarian Hong Kong. When Chip and Lance and all these guys, they're saying that, okay, yeah, we need to have someone to look at what's going on in Hong Kong. Who's in Hong Kong right now? Oh, Mikey is in Hong Kong. So, and I've been on the ground. So I've been reporting already, had my own little page at the time called Mr. Libertarian Hong Kong. That's pretty much taken out now. So I just moved everything to being libertarian instead.
Again, we'll try to put links to all of this stuff in the comment section after this
Sure.
gets posted.
Yeah. So that's where it started for me for being libertarian. And after like really understanding what's going on in Hong Kong, the protests, and talking to the protesters live, like in person, I realized that there's far more to it than just the five demand. The five demand is a
Yeah.
smokescreen.
Yeah. Actually, all the five demands I really super agree with. And that's why I was out like in June, like, yeah. Whenever I heard the five demands, like, I don't know if they were out in June, but whenever the five demands became five demands, I was like, yeah, this is really awesome. And then when I
Mhm.
talk to them, it's like they didn't want five demands. They call for rule of law, first of all. And I'm like, you guys are not rule of law. You're burning like public
Burning train,
infrastructure.
burning
Like
train, not just public infrastructure. They're also destroying private properties.
regardless, even if it was their own property and they were doing it in protest, they're creating disruptions that are illegal. The whole point of rule of law is that you go out there and you support the 800-year-old Magna Carta. You support the 200-year-old American Constitution. You have this US dollar. Oh, this is what we were talking about earlier, is the US dollar hegemony. And this is why I think that capitalists in America should be more worried about this, is because the 7.78 to the US dollar is at risk because of the violations to the Sino-British Agreement. The only
Hmm.
reason why the Hong Kong currency is the Hong Kong currency and not the Chinese yuan is because of the Sino-British Agreement
Agree.
with their co-conspirator, if you will, America, for the currency. So that we
Hmm.
have an independent currency, an independent market, an independent judiciary, an independent president, an independent customs and immigration and all
Everything
of
is
it.
independent
And it's
here.
all predicated on that US dollar. If you take away that US dollar hegemony, there's no reason why would America come here and defend Hong Kong if the US dollar was no longer, you know what I mean? And so America should be fighting for their US dollar in Asia because this is one of the only states in Asia that uses their dollar as
Hmm.
part of their currency. And they should
Yes.
be really, really, really worried about that as capitalists. Maybe not as libertarians, because I understand that, but as anarcho-capitalists, that's our claim to fame, is anarcho-capitalism. And this is money being an anarchist in the
Hmm.
real world. And when I heard those five demands, I was like, yeah, I am right there because of this US dollar hegemony. So go ahead and speak to that.
Sure. People, a lot of viewers may or may not know this. Since the 80s, when Ronald Reagan was in power, US dollars on the rise, huge, quick spike right there, because the Reaganomic was powerful. They were
Well,
smart. They
I
were,
don't
they know
necessarily
exactly.
agree with that, but yes, the rhetoric was very powerful,
Yeah,
which
exactly.
made the US dollar valuable. He
Yeah.
didn't follow through on the rhetoric, but yes, the rhetoric was very powerful
Hmm.
internationally.
Yeah, and it has to. We have to thank a lot. Thank Milton Friedman and Dr. Paul Craig Roberts for that, because those two are literally the father of Reaganomic.
For
They
sure.
designed that. They designed this whole
For
structure,
sure.
and the U.S. economy was as strong as you can get at the time, and it
For
also
sure.
served the collapse of the Soviet Union.
Yes, yes. And we sent McDonald's and Pizza Hut over there.
Hmm. Yeah, yeah, absolutely. It's great as they finally have like with
Fat
well
Russian. No.
have food that's high in omega 6. Oh no, that's actually not a good thing. Right. So now that's my nutritionist
Exactly.
talking to me. Now, the idea is that because of that at the time, U.S. dollars in a rise and Hong Kong dollar is just cannot keep up. So they decided, okay, let's just peg the Hong Kong dollar to the U.S. dollar at 7.76 or somewhere around that range. So that way we don't have to worry about the exchange rate. Prices won't go up dramatically or skyrocket. And it's been like that ever since.
We will
And
keep this agreement as long as all the conditions of the Sino-British Joint Declaration are met. When you
exactly.
break any of these conditions, the US dollar agreement here is void. And that is what's at stake right now for America. And I think that's really important to talk about.
Yeah, it's at stake not just for America, but pretty much all of Hong Kong at this
Right?
point. Because if
Right.
that's void, you Hong Kong dollar crash.
And then there's no reason for China to respect our Sino-British agreement. Not that they have, but they're going to further disregard the Sino-British agreement because the only thing holding the Sino-British agreement in place
It's
is
the
the fact that
U.S.
the US dollar is keeping that hegemonic wall, legal framework of a wall in place. And without that legal framework, you remove the US dollar. When the US says, no, we're going to remove our backing for the Hong Kong dollar, that's it. That's
Hmm.
it. We are then China. We are going to be paying our rent in RMB and not in Hong Kong dollar.
Yeah, and there's far more. There's a lot more consequences to it as well.
Right,
There's a
right.
lot more consequences to it as well. If that happened, a lot of American businesses and corporation, they'll just get out.
The U.S., but not only from Hong Kong, in America. America is enjoying, 1,700 US dollars to the ounce for gold or whatever it is right now. Like they got a good price for gold, like they're like you said, during Reagan, during Trump, the price went up. Right now, there's a lot of confidence in America because of the COVID-19 situation. They're all, $6 trillion on the market. Everyone wants to deal with US dollars. It's fine. The oil prices are down, so no one needs to trade oil right now. So the US dollar price is doing all
Mhm.
these things all over the place. I understand all that, but they need to understand that that's held in place on this side of that 6.6, which is the ratio for the Chinese yuan. That's going to
Yeah,
change a lot.
yeah,
That's going to change a lot if you do away with the Hong Kong dollar. And
yeah.
so the price fixing that China does on terms of their Chinese yuan and the buying power of the US dollar in Asia, being able to buy products from China, from Japan, from wherever, that's going to be seriously, seriously affected. I don't know for the better or for the worse, but I think for the worst if America doesn't have that hegemony in Hong Kong.
There is so much going. You already touched it. You touched it right there. Because a lot of corporation in U.S. they want to do business in China because, well, let's put this way: how many populations are there in China at this moment? We're talking billions.
1.4.
Yeah, we're talking lots and lots of people. And if you have that many customers or that many potential customers, you get, let's just say 0.1% of that market. That's a
The
lot of
amount
customer.
the amount of people that make the average American income or above in China in terms of standard of living, not actual US dollars,
Mhm.
like what the Chinese yuan can buy in China and what the US dollar can buy in China are obviously different,
Very
right?
different. Yeah, of course.
Right. But at the same time, the quality of life for the average American and the quality of life for over 300 million Chinese people is about the same.
Hmm.
So discounting the billion people that are in addition to that number, just the population of people that are living relative to the standard of living that Americans are living is identical at this moment in time in history. That's what
Hmm.
I'm understanding. Those
Hmm.
are the numbers I'm hearing from China. Is if there's 300 million Americans, there's 300 million Chinese that make as much money as those 300 million Americans.
Hmm.
You want those customers? Where do you get those customers? And China has spent the last 30 years pushing Samzan, pushing Shanghai. There's 12 different times that China has invested over $1 trillion US dollars. There's literally $16 trillion that China has invested on 12 different occasions before 97 and after 97. I mean, we're talking 30, 35 years that they've been doing this, that they've been investing. I mean, Samjun is just the perfect example. They've
Hmm.
they've literally spent 1.6 or 1.8 trillion US dollars in developing Samjun just to compete with Hong Kong, just to push us down. Like you started at the beginning of this
Yeah.
show, you said we were only 6% of the GDP. We used to be 20%. So China has systematically pushed our influence, our relevance to the
Down.
point
Yeah.
where the only thing that we can offer to Western corporations is credibility. Because like we're seeing
Credibility.
with
Yeah.
that's the only thing we can export is credibility. Because of the COVID-19 thing, you can see all over the world, Italy, Iran, even people that are sympathetic to China are saying, hey, you sent us these tests and they don't work. You sent us these gowns and they're kind of crappy. You sent us these face masks and they're not that good. You sent us all
Absolutely.
this stuff and it's not that great. And we really love you, China, but you got to do better. Like you got to send us better stuff. So, I mean, the credibility that China has is still lagging. Even in this
Absolutely.
COVID-19 situation, we can see that. So
Thank you.
the only thing that makes Hong Kong relevant in the world right now is that credibility of quality. When we sell something, we sell it and we make sure it's branded. We make sure it's quality. We make sure, even if it does come from China, we make sure it's, top notch. And so
Hmm.
Hong Kong really needs to hone in on that, in my opinion. And
Absolutely.
that's the
The
number one travesty
Sure.
here.
The difference in the terms in regards to the so-called, you already said it. Now, because China, for many years, they are running on a system, on a mindset. And this is exactly what Vladimir Lenin said, or I think Stalin said. There is quality in quantity in itself. That's what he said. So they produce a whole bunch of garbage that nobody wants. And
Or that it's throwaway stuff. If you're only buying a piece of junk because it serves as a purpose, it's like I went to the shop the other day and I needed a saw to cut some piece of wood. And I've been in Hong Kong 11 years and I've needed to use a saw all of 3 times.
Mhm.
Okay. So I went to go buy a saw and they had the $30 Hong Kong model or the $90 Hong Kong model, which is 10 US dollars or 4 US dollars. I spent 4 US dollars and bought the Chinese one, not the Japanese 10 US dollar one, because I only need it one time. So if
Mhm.
I just need a piece of junk to throw it away, that's the quality in mass producing something. Now, if I was going to use it every day as a tool, if I was a carpenter, I might want the Japanese one for
Exactly.
literally 3 times the price. So,
Exactly.
there's always that part of the market. And so I'm not trying to discount China at all. I'm just
No.
saying when the gowns are falling apart or the mask is not staying on my face, you don't necessarily meet a quality standard that's marketable, and you need to fix that.
No, no, absolutely. You're absolutely correct about that too. There is a market for everyone. Now, Milton
Right,
Friedman
right.
also said this. The prices, it's a signal. It's a
Yes,
signal telling you exactly what all these things means.
right.
It's a huge signal to the consumer, to the market. So you cannot discount that the price means something. For example, well, it's a bad analogy because personally I don't like Ferrari.
Right.
But if you're given a choice between a Ferrari and a Honda Civic Type R, which are you gonna take?
I mean, there's almost no Ferrari that would be less expensive than a Honda Civic Type R. So unless it was a really sad Ferrari, you'd be taking the Ferrari every day,
Yeah,
obviously.
exactly. Personally, I actually don't like Ferrari
Even
because
if you just sold it and bought the car that you wanted, you'd still take the Ferrari over the Honda.
exactly. I'll probably just get a Ferrari, take the Ferrari, sell it, then
Right.
get the Type R.
My favorite car is the M5. So,
There you go. There you go.
I would sell it and buy an M5 if I could afford it.
If yeah, my favorite car it's not the Ferrari, and I love the Type R, but I think my favorite car right now still, it's the Mitsubishi Lancer because
Really?
back
You
home,
like that?
because it saved my life.
Oh,
The
okay.
man, the first generation of the new Lancer saved my life. That's why I
Oh,
loved it
snap.
so much. The day I got it, I got a used car back in '08. I got rear-ended. Not just
Oh,
rear-ended, it was a three-car piled up.
wow.
The car behind me, the Audi, it's total lost.
Uh,
But the new car I only owned for an hour. They just put the new back and that's it.
wow,
And
wow, wow.
this chassis was extremely strong, no chassis damage whatsoever.
Awesome.
That was amazing. And the
I've
lady
had
in
some
front,
car accidents, and
yeah.
they can be quite scary.
And on by the way, the guy who rear-ended me is not Asian.
Ah, well, there you go. So you got to tell him he's the bad driver.
Yeah, okay. All right, moving right along though. So you're right about that. The whole thing, yeah, price is important to the whole system. Price is everything is important to the whole system. You need that. The price is everything. They will
Yeah, the
need to.
price is everything, but it's like my friend, I have a friend, and he doesn't know anything about politics or anything that I know, but he says in life you have a rule. And let me see if I can get it right. I think it's cheap, fast, and good. And you can pick two. And since we can only pick two, that rule that you stated about the market being available for everyone is right. Because some people are going to want cheap and fast. Some people are going to want cheap and good. Some people are want good and fast. Your car, your Mitsubishi, it was cheap, good, and fast. You know what I mean?
Not
So,
necessarily fast, but it was good
well,
and
it's a
cheap.
Mitsubishi Evo. It should
No,
be
it's not
quite.
evil. It's a
Oh,
Lancia.
oh, well, there you go. So,
Yeah.
I mean, compared to a Ferrari, like, which is expensive, and actually Ferraris might be slower than the Evo, so they're not as fast, even though they're more expensive. So they're good in a different way. You know what I mean? So you only have these three options in the market,
You
and
pick
since
two.
that's a real market force, you have to pick two. And China has picked cheap
Cheap and
and good, reasonably good, good enough.
good enough.
So
Yeah. That
they
will
don't
last
care
you for a
about
few days.
fast. They absolutely don't care about fast. They care about the right product for the right market. And they
Exactly.
know that they can't compete with Apple, so they have Huawei. And my Huawei cost me 1,000 Hong Kong dollars, and my Apple iPhone cost me 15,000 Hong Kong dollars.
This is
So
my iPhone 7. Same idea.
right. You paid something like 10, if you bought that new, you paid something like 10,000 Hong Kong dollars for it, and you could have got the equivalent from Huawei or Xiaomi or some other Chinese brand for 10% of that price. And it would
Hmm.
have been 90% of the product.
Hmm.
But you know what? I can show you a picture. I can show you I'll find my Xiaomi for the next episode
For
and
the
I'll
next
show.
episode, so next time.
It's
All right.
totally destroyed. You know what I mean? So I brought my Samsung to the snow, and I brought my brand new Xiaomi to the snow. And both times, I came home with a phone that worked. But my
Yeah.
Xiaomi now looks like it's exploding, and my Samsung is still working on this show.
Yeah.
So you can see the difference.
Exactly.
But
The
I
only.
also paid
Mhm.
10% of what I paid for my Xiaomi for my Samsung.
The only
So
phone that I can think of that is both good, cheap, and what was the last quality again?
fast. It has to be
And
fast.
fast. Cheap, good, and fast. That has all three quality. And of course, extremely durable is a Nokia.
That's true.
You can
Noble
throw it at.
3360s were pretty good.
Yeah, you can throw it at somebody and somebody or throw it down a building and the cement break and the phone's still okay. You drop an iPhone down half a story high,
Oh my
the
God.
owner break.
Yeah, the owner breaks. Exactly. Exactly. Breaks
All
their
right.
wallet.
Yeah,
All right. So
exactly.
we talked about the Hong Kong being libertarian.
Mhm.
What do you want to talk about? The gym or the singing?
Let's go with the well, not quite gym, but more like a because now a licensed nutritionist and
Awesome.
fitness coach right now.
We will put the link in the comments about that, right?
Yeah. So I actually here is part of my training is that yes, last year I actually weigh at least 20 to 30 pounds more than what I am right now. I wouldn't say 20 to 30 pounds more, but just to give you a picture, I weigh a lot more. I was a lot more wider. I
Mm-hmm.
can put now I can
Rounder.
put my whole hand just like that down my pants
That's awesome.
like that. Yeah. And it's
Like
and I
Not like Al Bundy, I hope.
I have no idea who that is.
Al Bundy from Married with Children used to sit on the couch with his hands.
No, I never watched that show.
Oh, come on. Never mind. Keep talking.
Okay. Okay. So, and I found that because I'm also a school teacher in Hong Kong, and it
Okay.
just so happened my
That's
supervisor just
awesome.
messaging me. Like, so I found that at least 30% of my students are overweight. Do you know that about 30% of the children in Hong Kong are overweight?
That doesn't surprise me. I go to the park sometimes to do some exercise, and I notice that most of the kids are glued to their phone.
Yeah. And I had teachers' parents meeting, and I found that, well, guess what? Parents are the same.
Right.
So
Right.
my conclusion is that it has to start from the home. So I did some study and study research, and from my training through my certification program, and I found that most of our weight, our fitness, actually comes from what we eat.
Of
Our food. I'm
course.
sorry. At
Of
least
course.
70%, 80% is what we eat.
Yes. Yes.
Dr. Dave Heber from UCLA, he agreed with that. He also taught about that.
I
He
have a
is
friend in Hong Kong. He spends let's just give a ballpark number, 20,000 a month per gym that he goes to for training and membership and blah blah blah, and he probably goes to 2 or 3 different gyms. Sometimes he can spend 20, 30, 40,000 a month just on going to the gym, and he's been doing that for a few years. And all of the trainers that all of the trainers he goes to, they all say the same thing: 90% of what you do in the gym is dictated by what you put in your mouth.
Exactly. Exactly. Majority is, it does not matter. So how do we, for example, get fit? It's not just about exercise. So the first thing we always do is we calculate what we call our TDEE. That is our
Okay.
total daily
Maybe.
energy expenditure. So
Right.
example,
Yes. Yes.
do you know about
That's
that?
exactly, no,
About
I
that?
don't. I don't. That's just how I live my life. Is if I wake up one day and I sit around the house and I do absolutely nothing, I don't watch TV, I just kind of rest or whatever. I haven't done anything. I haven't used any calories. Now,
Oh,
if
you
I'm
do.
sitting there reading a book, or I'm watching, the
Hmm.
president speak, or I'm really like intensely Netflixing, then okay, I've used my eyes a lot. If I go out, on my bicycle for a 20, 30, 40 kilometer ride, and then I come home, yeah, of course I've used 2,000, 3,000, 4,000 calories in a normal day when I'm active. But when I'm not active and I only use 1,100 calories a day, why do I need to go out and eat a 3,000 calorie meal? I've only used
You got that
1,100
anyway.
calories today.
It's
You know
it's
what
the
I
law
mean?
of thermodynamic. It's the
Right,
absolute
right.
the law of thermodynamic.
Exactly.
Every nutritionist and fitness coach would tell you that. You're absolutely correct. So what happens if you don't spend those energy?
It causes toxic reactions. You build up, you get
Hmm.
all diarrhea or constipation or some combination of the two, or
There's a lot more to it too.
you gain
So
weight, you
you gain weight. There you go. You increase fat.
lactic acid.
Yeah, you increase fat. That's what happened.
Right?
The problem is that people don't realize that there's like, oh, we'll just work it out, work it off. An average person, when they go for a party over the weekend, they put an extra 4,000 calorie into
Yeah,
their body.
yeah, exactly. And it's alcohol and cake and, you know,
Ooh,
like
cake.
all the worst possible kinds of calories you could put in.
It's calorie, right? So we put a
Yeah.
lot of calorie and they think that they can work it off. But one gym exercise, how much do you burn?
Well, for me, I burn quite a bit, but I go for hours. I do endurance stuff.
That's a little too much.
Yeah, yeah.
That's a little too much. So we usually say somewhere around 300 to 500 calorie.
Yeah, I don't know about that because I can sweat like nonstop. I can drink like maybe 5 or 6 liters of water in a normal workout. So
Hmm.
like if I'm sweating out and not necessarily need to urinate any more than normal. So I mean if I can sweat out 4 or 5 liters of water in one gym exercise or one actual like setting, I think I'm burning slightly more than 500 or 600 calories.
Well, calculate it. Calculate it. It's
Yeah,
scientific, buddy. It's scientific.
yeah.
Because sweating it, it's actually not a very good idea to gauge how much calorie you burn.
Well, I'm just saying that's how active I am.
Yeah.
What is the wrist thing? One of those like
Fitbit. I have a
Fitbit or
Fitbit as
whatever.
well. Yeah.
I don't know if you think those are accurate or not, but some of my workouts have been like 1,000 or 1,200 calories.
You can have a rough estimation, and that's fine too.
Yeah,
So,
yeah, yeah.
like I mentioned, we need to calculate our total
All
daily
right.
energy expenditure (TDEE) first. Then those are easy to calculate. You just need a rough estimation, round it
Yeah.
up. So mine is around 2,600 every day. For my age, because I'm actually a lot more older than I look. I'm far more older than I look, and the difference is I'm quite active,
Right.
and an average 40-year-old, their TDEE somewhere around 2,500 for
Yeah, I
a
would agree
40-year-old
with
male.
that.
Around if their weight is around 180 pounds,
Yeah.
so that's around that. That's the rough part.
6 foot, 180.
Yeah. So if they cut down, for example, 20% of their daily intake of calorie, that can help them lose weight quite a bit already, and that will
Right.
help them on a path of weight loss. And we say 20%, some say 10%, some say 15. Safe bet is somewhere around that range. You don't need to be exact, but it's not an exact science.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
it's just the law of thermodynamic. That's it.
Of course, of
And
course.
then your body start burning those right
It's
away.
funny that you say thermodynamics because as soon as you said that, I totally remembered that my grandfather graduated with a degree in nutrition in 1994, 1995. So, I mean,
Hmm.
it's been a while ago now, but I was homeschooled in America, and my grandfather did most of my homeschooling, at least in the summertime. So,
Hmm.
throughout the summers as a kid from 1995 on, I was learning about thermodynamics because he used to say, all food is thermodynamics. Like you just
Exactly.
have to burn the amount of food that you put in and you'll be healthy. Doesn't
Exactly.
matter what it is, as long as it's healthy and you'll be fine.
As long as you have like a complete whole grain, like what we'll just say whole grain, but what we call balance of diet.
Uh,
According to Harvard University, what they meant by their definition of balanced diet, because everybody have a different philosophy or a different definition.
for
So I go
sure.
by Harvard Nutrition, and also from UCLA. They agree on this one. Half of what you eat every day should be different kind of vegetables and fruits.
Yes, yes.
Half of it, different colors, vegetables and fruit. And there is a reason for that. I'll
And
explain
those
later.
should be the only kind of sugars that you eat. You shouldn't eat sugars from other sources like breads or cakes or sodas or
Oh,
other
let me
things.
explain that to you.
Yeah, go ahead.
Let me explain that too. While the other for a quarter should be whole grain, right?
Uh-huh.
Whole grain. So, for example, brown rice. I eat brown rice.
Right.
Whole grain bread. I know some people will go by the low
Low
carb,
glycemic index
low
things.
glycemic
Great.
index, but that means very little.
Right.
And I'll explain that a little bit.
Right.
I explain that. And a quarter of that, what you eat, it should be protein, right?
Yeah, I agree.
Glycemic index, I have to admit that it means very little. It only works for one thing though. If you only eat that kind of food and you have an empty stomach. For example, you wake up early in the morning. So for example, you eat a whole bunch of white bread. Of course, that will affect your blood sugar in your system.
Right, right. Like
But
orange juice.
yeah, exactly, because orange juice has so little fiber.
Right.
And but the problem is most people will eat multiple different kinds of food at once.
Right.
So that doesn't really apply.
That's what my grandfather used to say too, is because like some things require, his understanding was that some things require an acid and some things require a
Alkaline
base,
base, yeah.
alkaline to digest. And so like whereas sugars generally require something that's alkaline to digest it, um, proteins necessarily might use something that's more acidic. So when you put proteins and sugars in at the same time, your body has to pick and choose which one it's going to digest first. And that may or
Mm,
may not affect your sort of like uptake, if you will. Your, what's
that
the word I'm
will
looking
that's
for?
something I would disagree with
Yeah, okay.
because your body is such a smart system already. It's designed that way. So they say alkaline base. The problem is that what is the pH level of our
Right,
stomach? The pH stands for power of hydrogen.
right.
Our pH level in our stomach is somewhere around 2 to 3 or sometimes 4, depending on at which state. And when it's not digesting, then it's around 4, right?
Okay.
Not acidic. It's more acidic when we're eating because we need to
Uh-huh.
digest it. It needs to be acidic to digest something. So
Right.
after it goes through our stomach, then we have a mechanism to start to neutralize the stomach acid. And when it goes to our intestines, yeah, it's slightly more acidic in there, slightly a little more acidic than it should be, but that's where it needs to be, and that's where we start to our the philia inside our small intestine start to absorb the nutrients and so on.
Yeah,
And
yeah, yeah.
on our blood is actually kept at a very smart level. Our kidney,
Yeah, I
our
understand that.
lungs, yeah, it keeps our blood at a 7.35 to 7.5 in terms of the
Right.
pH scale. It has to be kept that way.
Yeah, you die.
or you will die. You
It's like
can
immediate death. There's
you
like,
can die. Absolutely right.
yeah.
And every medical journal said that. So the whole idea of, yes, I agree that the whole idea, oh, let's raise our alkalinity, it's BS. It's nothing
For
more than
me,
this.
for me, I have found personal, and this is anecdotal
Mm-hmm.
evidence, okay, but I've been doing this literally. I'm 36 years old. I moved in with my adopted family when I was 16. So I'm not exaggerating. I've been doing this for 20 years. Whenever I feel a little bit sick, I take what's called cream of tartar. It's a baking soda,
Mm-hmm.
and I take baking soda. So there's two kinds of baking soda and cream of tartar, and I take a little tiny bit of each of them. I mix them together, and that makes a little solution with water, and you just drink it hourly, and preferably on an empty stomach. So you, while you feel sick, I don't really value calories that much because I don't want to lower my immune system by burdening it with all this new food. So
Mm-hmm.
generally speaking, when I'm sick, I eat less, and then I oscillate. You know, I won't eat like while I'm drinking this thing because I want to get kind of a empty stomach while I'm drinking
Mm-hmm.
this to neutralize my blood. Because my mom, who's not a nutritionist but has other sort of education, the one who adopted me, she adopted me and has education background in philosophy and dietary things and psychiatry and like actual psychiatry and things like that. So in her mind, you can control the between those parameters of seven, whatever you said they were,
7.35 to 7.45. You can sort
right?
of, but
If you
not
go to the
significantly.
hospital and you see people who are super cancerous, who are super sick with the flu or cough or cold or all these normal diseases, their acidity level is super close to being outside either one of those parameters.
Mm-hmm.
And what this drink does, which, you know, is the baking soda and cream of tartar, is it levels that blood out to where it can actually fight back and push the immune system, and the white blood cells can populate and do all their job. Now, I'm not saying there's any scientific evidence to support that, but
That's what you said,
anecdotally,
right?
it
Mm-hmm.
works very, very good.
Well, this is from a scientific point of view right now. What happened is that because when someone is sick or there is an infection or there's something wrong with their lungs or with their kidney, then they cannot maintain that level well enough.
Right.
So that's what happened. Now, does it work though? It may make you feel better because it neutralizes your stomach acid a little bit better.
Mm-hmm.
So, for example, I have acid reflux,
Mm-hmm.
and acid reflux is extremely bad for a professional singer.
Yeah.
One of
Yeah.
the worst things that could happen for professional singers are smoking, some of them, smoking, acid reflux, and poor diet, and so on. So yes, I do drink baking powder water if
Uh-huh.
I have acid reflux. So that would neutralize that. Or if I have heartburn, I'll do that
Right. Right. Change the alkalinity in your stomach
in the
to
stomach.
sort of
So
bring
that
that down.
way it
Yeah.
neutralizes a little bit in the stomach.
Right.
Keyword in the stomach, not in the blood, right?
Right. Right.
And that's the only thing I can think of.
Yeah.
Now, in regards to health and that health and fitness and so on. Now, with the whole COVID-19, I know that a lot of people in the world are being in lockdown in their home and so on.
Yeah.
It is actually possible to even work out and exercise. I know Hong Kong, a lot of gyms had closed down. Lan Kwai Fong, they had a couple of infections because they can trace it back to the gym.
Right.
As long as you have a room or a space that you can sort of lay down on the floor or a yoga mat, that's all you really need. You don't need like
Yeah.
fancy equipment exercise.
I
Your
agree.
body weight is weight. For example, you do squats. I do squats 100 squats a day. I try to do at least 60 to 70 push-ups a day, and that's only for warm up. And for jumping jacks, I do close to 300 to 500, somewhere around that
Wow.
range. And that is
Well, my
just for
knees could
warm up.
never handle that.
Yeah. And I'm older than you, buddy. I'm a lot more older than
Yeah,
you.
but I have really bad knees.
Yeah,
I've had a
and
lot of car accidents, motorcycle accidents, bicycle accidents, skateboarding, rollerblading, ski, snowboard,
yeah.
boats.
So
I
what you can do is you can build up, right? Everybody can do it.
have a lot
It's
of
not an issue.
I have
But
a
the
lot.
first thing we mention it, it's food. Food from first, what we eat. So recap whole grain food. And then next thing, whole grain food, a quarter of what you eat should be whole grain food. A quarter should be protein of different kinds. We say that animal protein has all your essential protein, and plant-based protein, they don't have all the nine essential protein. But so that's why you need to have different kinds of like
I agree.
plant-based protein. Half of what you eat should be different kinds of plants and vegetables and fruits and so on. And that should do it. And why I really stress on this kind of diet because of the fiber. Inside our system, unfortunately, it's going to gross you out a bit because we
Not
talked about
really.
bacteria
My
before,
mom's a
viruses.
colon hydrotherapist. I've talked about this stuff for a long time.
Okay, so what we talked about viruses before, and I'm going to go into bacteria now. Bacteria
Yeah,
is everywhere, right?
of course. It's the
It's on
most
your skin.
populous thing on the earth.
Yeah, it's inside
Hydrogen and
us.
bacteria.
Yeah, and inside our body, we have a lot of gut bacteria.
Right.
There are about 100 trillion different individual cells
Yeah.
inside our gut bacteria. It's also called a microbiome.
Yeah.
This
Yeah.
microbiome, I actually wrote a paper on this. The microbiome, helps us regulate our intake, helps us regulate our mood, surprisingly, and also our immune system, and also with our blood pressure as well.
Totally.
If our microbiome, the number of bacteria of, we don't have enough good bacteria, we call it, then we have a huge problem with our immune
Yeah.
system and our cholesterol level, blood pressure,
Yep.
sky up.
Yep.
So the fiber that we eat, so the soluble fiber, I'm going to stress soluble fiber. A lot of plant-based diet and Mediterranean diet, those food there, they have what we call soluble fiber. And you can also get supplement for that too, if you don't have
Right.
enough of that. And when it enters our stomach, it will turn into a gel-like substance. It does a lot of things for us. This gel absorbs sugar, cholesterol, fat, and so on. So slow down our body's absorption into our bloodstream. So
Right.
that's why nutritionists and fitness coaches, we don't count fructose
Yeah.
into carbs that much
Right.
because of that reason. And that's also
It's
why I
hard
said,
to absorb.
yeah, that's why I don't consider orange juice as a healthy diet, part of a
Not at
healthy
all.
diet.
Not
No,
at all.
because you don't have that fiber.
Well, your body doesn't know how to absorb it. There's nothing for it to grab onto, and it
Exactly.
just goes right through you. It passes through without actually being absorbed.
That is insoluble fiber. That is true. So,
Right.
because fiber, we are not designed to absorb fiber. We cannot absorb fiber, and that
That's
is
why like smoothies don't work. People think, "Oh, I'm eating my fruits and my vegetables. I'm putting some veggies and stuff in the blender and I'm putting it all together and then I'm
oh
juicing it."
they
It's like
were.
it's like you're a lot of that is just sugar water.
Well, if they include the whole fruits in there, then it's fine.
Right.
Now, why I meant it worked is that there is a second thing that it does that's even more important. Have you heard? Everybody
But
have
some
heard of.
people are saying that like
Mhm.
if you freeze the fruits, it can break apart the fibers and like it
Doesn't
doesn't
matter.
really have the full effect. Like
Doesn't really matter. It doesn't really matter because it only affects insoluble fiber, but soluble fiber it's dissolves in water, right? So it doesn't.
Mike's the professional, guys. Just so that you know, I'm
I'm
not
the
the
professional.
professional.
Yeah. So the second thing, everybody heard of probiotic, is that right?
Yeah, I've heard of that.
Yeah.
I've been taking
Probiotic is
probiotics for a long
important.
time.
Harvard University, Alan Walker, that's recommend probiotic
Yeah.
for a lot of people from different spectrums of age.
Yeah.
And you can get it from cheese, kimchi, miso. Some people take probiotic. I used to take probiotic It helped me lost at
Some
least 20.
people go all the way and get a stool sample and like find out what kind of levels they have of everything, and you got to go back like once a month or whatever and
Yeah,
like get regular checkups,
yeah,
and like they
absolutely.
give you like supplements for different biotics that you're
Yeah,
missing. Like,
I had heard of stool transplant too.
yeah, I've heard of that too.
Gross, but it worked.
Now that grosses me out.
That
Yes.
grosses me out too. I mean, oh shit. I mean, oops,
Oh
sorry.
shit, literally. We're not allowed to say bad words on YouTube, but literally, oh my God.
Yeah. So now consider this. What about prebiotic?
Pray.
No,
Man,
prebiotic.
prebiotic.
Have you heard of that?
This is not a terminology I'm used to.
Hmm. Prebiotic is nothing more than fiber, just soluble fiber. It
Okay.
turns out that our good gut bacteria, they metabolize or eat, quote unquote, fiber.
Right.
What we found is that even though in North America or in Europe, in developed world, the problem with their health is that they eat about 75% of what they eat is only 12 different plants. So they don't have
Huh.
enough of variety of gut bacteria or number of gut bacteria in their system.
Wow.
But when we
It's
come
broccoli, banana, orange, apple. Like they only have like these 12 things that
12,
they
right?
eat.
Yeah, but in Hong Kong we eat a lot more than that.
Yeah, yeah, of course.
Yeah, like bok choy, gailan,
Yeah.
even green
Gao
onion,
choy.
herbs, and so on. We have a lot of those. Now,
Yeah.
in Africa and in South America, they have so many different kinds of different vegetables and fruits and so on. They found that they have better number of or higher variety number of gut bacteria inside their system, and their gut bacteria count is a lot more healthier
Huh.
as a result because they have different kinds of fruits and vegetables and so on.
Probably because they have wet markets too.
Yeah, absolutely. So that's why I encourage people, okay, that's why I say eat your plants, eat your different kinds of
Yeah.
plants. This is extremely important because they help and they not
Variety.
variety and they will help lower our cholesterol level. It turns out that we had done a lot of number of tests. A person had, well, they're not a person. There are a number of tests so far. They found that those people who had taken high fiber diet, after about a month and so on, their cholesterol level dropped by about 30%.
Yeah.
And our heart
That's
level, our heart, and for women health and so on, they stated that those women who taken high fiber diet, their heart is a lot more healthier. And our cardiovascular system is a lot more healthier as well.
right. That's another thing I've heard too from different scientists is like the heart health is one of the more important because you're only allowed so many heartbeats per lifetime. Like different animals relative to the size of the brain, the size of the body, and the size of the heart, they have like certain parameters for their lifetime. And so based on the size of the human brain, based on the size of the human body, and based on the size of the human heart, scientists have come to this sort of configuration of you're only allowed this many heartbeats within a lifetime. And once you get to the end of that number, you're kind of like SOL and you like basically
It kind
explode
of
and die.
stopped.
Right.
The
And so
mhm.
like they're saying that's why like runners should be healthier than say footballers because footballers, I mean American footballers, because the American footballers are these big heavy set African American guys versus the runners tend to be the Ethiopian skinny,
Lean and skin,
tall,
right?
bitty. Right. So technically like the runner guy when he gets home his heartbeat is much lower than the footballer when he gets home he's eating junk food and salts and all these things that elevate his heart rate, and so his heart rate is much higher because he's this big bad guy, and the runner guy should live longer because his so depending on how much you run and how much you exercise, basically the goal of exercising according to these doctors or the reports I've seen is to get your resting heart rate
There you
as
go.
low as possible. And so you do as much exercise as possible to get your resting heart rate as close to, say, 60 per minute or whatever it is that they recommend. And then once you get to that point, you kind of like back off on the exercise because your heart rate is elevated while you're exercising. So as long as you get to your height, weight, brain size, heart size ratio, you know what I mean? As long as you get to that right ratio for your heart rate, then that's how long you're going to live. And you know what I mean? You don't need to exercise more than that, because if you exercise more than that, the time you're exercising, your heart rate is elevated. You're just cutting off time from the end of your life.
Yeah, you're pretty spot on that. It's the resting or the
Yeah.
normal
Yeah.
heart rate. So a lot of scientists and doctors, they do recommend like exercise, like for average people, you can do HIIT, that's HIIT, that's high intensity interval training.
Right.
So it's very easy and simple. You can do that for running. All you need to
Best
do is just, for example,
story of my life.
exercise, raise your heart rate to about 80 to 90%, or sometimes in 70 to depending your age, or depends your fitness level as well, to around 80 plus percent of your maximum heart rate, and then
I'm
for
not a
about 5 minutes.
scientist,
Hmm.
but I've heard of this idea before. My friend has it, and I told him that I've been doing that my whole life. The only difference is I add endurance. You know
Yeah, endurance
what I
is
mean?
also important too.
I
So you
like
can,
the high impact, but I also like to be able to go high impact all day. And
yeah,
so I do it and raise my heart rate, and then I rest long enough that I know I can get that high heart rate again and still have enough power to keep doing that rhythm all
yeah,
day long, all day
exactly.
long. So
That's
when I get
also
on my
part of it too.
bicycle, I can just ride for 10 hours, and every hour I'll have a high impact, go,
And then
go,
bring
go,
it back
uphill,
down.
uphill, and bring it back down, rest for 40, 45 minutes on still riding my bike, still pushing, but really relaxed, and then go high, high,
Go high,
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 high.
high,
Yeah,
and then relax, relax, relax,
exactly.
relax. So,
So for quickest way to lose weight, it's exactly what you meant.
all right.
We recommend somewhere around, well, you can do it for hours, maybe because you're a lot more fit.
Yeah,
So
yeah. Well, I've
for
been doing
average
it for a long
people,
time.
because I can do that for about 2 hours. Sometimes I didn't even notice it because I'm watching like cartoons on YouTube.
First time I went to bike on my in Taiwan, I think it was like 6 or 7 years ago. So,
Yeah,
like, I've
oh,
been riding bikes for a long time.
I miss Taiwan. Taiwan's beautiful.
Oh, I love Taiwan too.
Well,
So
you know what?
too
That's
bad we're
actually,
banned.
yeah. Well, it's actually really my code of saying that I miss my ex-girlfriend. That's all, because she's from Taiwan.
Oh,
She's a really good girl, and you know what? We broke up on good terms. But anyway, back to that. So average people, if they want to lose weight, just 30 to 40 minutes or 45 minutes. So after warm up, just bring it up, down, for a little bit. That's all they really need. And if they do, for example, resistance training, like we have this theory called progressive overload, that will help build your muscle as well. But you also said it right. You said it correctly that you need to also build endurance as well. So we always have something that will say, okay, you also need to build endurance. There are two types of skeletal muscle. One that's build strength, another build endurance. You need both. You
right,
need both.
right.
You need the
I try to
alternation.
explain I try to explain people that it's like you can either be a heavyweight boxer like Holyfield, or you can be a lightweight boxer like De La Hoya. And so you have these two options, but
Mhm.
nobody really falls into either one of those extremes. You need both
You
in
need
daily
both.
life. And
Exactly.
so what you do is when you're training, if you're training for strength, you eat a lot of calories and you go and you do strength training. If you're
Yeah.
training for endurance, you don't eat anything and you go run for 3 hours and now you're building endurance. So you have these two sets of exercises that either give you speed and endurance or strength and power,
Yeah.
like
We call that
weight,
bulking.
right?
When you want to eat up a lot of calories and use exercise, that's called bulking. That you build up a lot of muscle very quickly.
But you also build up fat, and that's what people don't
Exactly.
understand is they're like, well, I keep getting big titties, or I keep getting, big fat this or
Yeah.
whatever.
Don't grab my
Well, that's
boobies.
what happens when you're building.
When you're
If you're
building.
building, just build.
Yeah.
And, I like to look at things from kind of a psychological or religious aspect, I like to tell people from my own personal experience, I have the best results when I'm building after the new moon.
Yeah.
And then I'm getting endurance. I'm doing my endurance training and I'm losing weight after the full moon.
Yeah.
So when the full moon is going down, you do your endurance, high intensity, high speed, high endurance stuff. And then when the moon is new and getting bigger, that's when you slow it down. You go into the gym, you do the heavy weights, you eat a lot of food, you really build up those things so that for 2 weeks you're building and for 2 weeks you're losing. And for 2
Yeah.
weeks you're building and for 2 weeks you're losing.
Yeah.
And that way you're always stuck in the middle between De La Hoya on one side and Holyfield on the other. You know?
That's technique. It's timing technique. It's called
Right.
bulking and cutting. Bulking
Right.
and cutting.
That's the story
Exactly.
of my life.
Yeah, that's exactly what a lot of bodybuilders do. They bulk up, they eat a lot of calories, then they exercise because that gives them energy, right?
Right.
Okay,
Right.
and then they felt that they usually about 2 weeks to a month, they have too much fat, and that's where they
Exactly.
start cutting. So
Exactly.
they minus 20% of their
And you just watch the Chinese
eating.
calendar and that's how you eat. Whatever the Chinese
Chinese
calendar.
calorie. I don't even know how to read that.
Right.
Well, you're more Chinese than I am now.
Sometimes.
Dun, dun, dun,
Not
dun, dun,
always.
dun. I'm just too
That's
uptight to have fun.
Japanese. That's
Oh,
not
come
Chinese at
on.
all.
Close enough. Close enough. Close
Close
enough.
enough, exactly. It's on that side of the planet. All right. Well, I guess we'll have to leave your singing career for the next time I have you back, especially because I want to have you back with another friend of mine named Joe Mo. So hopefully the next time I have you back, I'll be able to have the three of us in one, and then you guys will actually be able to talk about entertainment stuff in a way that I
Sure.
don't really understand.
Wow, because
But
the Hollywood entertainment industry, right?
there you go. Well,
That's where it
he's
originally
from
comes.
Hollywood. He lives in Hollywood. So I'll be
Wow.
the Hong Kong perspective. You can be the Canada perspective, and he'll be the Hollywood perspective on that
Cool.
show.
Awesome. Sounds good.
But
Let's see what time's it right now. I gotta
yeah,
reply my supervisor.
we gotta really get this cut off. So I will let you go. Let me just let everybody know that this is our first show of many. Hopefully, we will do this again. Hopefully, it won't be 2 hours and 20 minutes next time.
Wow. Yeah.
But
Wow. We were
anyway,
literally there for
now
so
you
long.
can see the whole platform and how we do things here at Voice of Hong Kong. I really appreciate being libertarian from Hong Kong and Facebook. Mike, I really appreciate your time.
All right.
Please check the comments if you're watching this video at 2 hours and 21 minutes. Please check the comments. All the information on his nutritional guides and other stuff will all be
Sure.
downstairs.
I'll post 3 links. The first one will be Being Libertarian Hong Kong. I'll send to you on Skype. And second will be my own personal page on fitness. That's Mikey Wong Fitness. And third one will be my fitness coaching landing page because I have two aspects of fitness. One is on the nutrition, mostly on the nutrition, and we do agree that supplementation is quite important. And the other one is, of course, personal coaching in terms of fitness and diet and so on. And that part there, I am certified and I have a landing page for that. And I just got that.
And since we're in COVID-19, you can do all of that via Skype or over the phone, or do you actually need to be there in person
I don't need to be
for
there in
those
person.
things?
They can
Right.
just download an app. I am certified with KiloFit
Okay.
as well, KiloFit Academy. So they can download KiloFit Academy clients app and they will be connected to me right away. And then there are a couple of requirements that they need to let me know what they're eating every day. And then I'll create like a exercise plan, a very quick exercise plan and diet plan around what they're eating and around what their lifestyle is. So it is enjoyable and it is fun. And oh, if they decide that they have a cheat meal, it's fine, totally fine. Enjoy it as much as you can.
Right.
Go nuts, go crazy. It's cheat meal though, not cheat day.
Right. Okay.
Cheat meal though, not cheat
Yeah,
day.
I
Yeah,
I
exactly.
kind of agree with that. So that's one of the reasons why I look up to you and I love everything that I hear from you is because as a libertarian, we're like preppers. You know, we're
Oh, I lost you. Oh, oh, I lost you.
Oh no. Oh
Okay,
no, we
I'm here. I'm
lost. We
back. I'm
lost.
back. I'm
Okay,
back. I'm
we're
back. I'm
back.
back.
We're back. We're back. Okay, so anyway, I was just saying that as libertarians, we're always needing to be a 360-degree approach to life. We
Mhm.
can't be too susceptible to being you know, locked in our own way of looking at things. And you
No, no.
really have a 360 degree of approach. You know
Yeah,
about politics, you know about religion, you know about health and fitness, and you know about living in various countries. So
yeah.
anyway, that's it for today. 2 hours and 25 minutes.
Wow,
I
that sounds
think we're
super
good to
long right
go.
there. Yeah. So
Maybe
people
super long, but
advise look up someone like Ron Paul. Ron Paul is super great about living in full circle. Rand
not
Paul,
Rand Paul,
but not
Ron
Rand
Paul.
Paul. Ron Paul, right? And even
Ron
someone
Paul,
like
yeah.
Judge Napolitano, he's pretty good about that
Yes,
too.
yes, I
So
agree with
these two people I really look up to. Peter Schiff as well.
you. Okay.
Go look them up, and they're great about that. And the philosopher, so my good friend, the philosopher, and her husband, Jack Lloyd.
I've read some of their stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I'm pretty familiar with some of their stuff. They're pretty
Yeah.
good.
Yeah.
All right, guys. We'll see you later. Have a good one.
All right.
Bye
Ciao for
bye.
now.
This
Bye
has been
bye.
Voice of Hong Kong.
Voice of
Out.
Hong Kong.